Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Boy, I tell you, we worked over Willie and Derek on their way out today. Those guys do not seem very happy right now. I think they're still in the back of the hallway right now bickering about about our opinions that they don't seem to believe. So, let me say this. Let's start with this. Because the Titans have made some roster moves. We'll get into that. They do have a press conference today at 3:30. We will play that live and in its entirety. Carthon and Callahan. So be excited about that. But after the Ernest Jones trade, and I would love to do this. Frazier, get his attention. Get Frazier's attention because Willie and Derek are out there right now.
They're talking about something.
Oh, it's important?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what it's about, but.
Okay. Well, let me just say this. Somebody sent me a message yesterday. A friend of mine sent me a message last night, and he said, I'm glad you said yesterday that you didn't know who Ernest Jones was before all of this. Because this guy said to me, he goes, I didn't know who Ernest Jones was. Now, did you know who Ernest Jones was before all of this?
I did not know.
Now, granted, he plays defense, so I'm not going to get too worked up about it, but you're a big-time fantasy footballer.
Sure. If he played offense, I'd probably have heard of him before. But no, not on defense.
So when it comes to all of that, I mean, I didn't know who he was, but everything says that he's great. And again, I kept making the comparisons yesterday to Roquan Smith and saying, I mean, if you just look at the PFF data and you just look at all it seems like this is a really, really good trade. And that's all I can go off of. I'm not going to sit down and watch Rams tape from last year. I'm just going to see what the people in LA say, and people in LA aren't totally happy about this, saying whoa, this guy's pretty good. But I'm also not sure how much this moves the big picture needle. And Titans Twitter yesterday was dancing for jubilation after this Ernest Jones trade. And I think it is a good trade. But again, let's pump the brakes a little bit on acting like this is some kind of earth-shattering addition. It's a nice ad if everything is as presented. If the Carfax report matches up with what we're being told we're purchasing here at linebacker, then it's a good deal. But it's not the end of the world in terms of, oh my God, now we're contenders. And that is the vibe that I feel like I'm getting from the fan base with this addition. And maybe it's just the loudest subset of the fan base that is acting that way. But guys, it was essentially a 7th round draft choice for an inside linebacker who makes $3 million. It was not acquiring Aaron Rodgers. Last year, you had a great fall in your lap addition with DeAndre Hopkins. But the team was still terrible even with DeAndre on it. And my point here is not to belittle Titans fans who are excited. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But my point is actually more of a question, which is for you guys, how much does this really move the needle? Ian, we said at the beginning of the preseason when we do our official expectations for the year, I set mine based on the model at 5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
You set yours at 4. Yesterday, somebody said in the YouTube chat, they said, Ian, Jared, you guys ready to adjust those now?
I saw that.
Are you ready to change yours?
Not yet, no.
I'm not either. So all of a sudden, are the Titans more likely to beat Chicago because they made this trade? I mean, I haven't been looking at the line, but my guess is it hasn't really budged that much. So again, I'm not here to belittle anybody. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, is this really that big of an addition that everybody needs to celebrate and make videos? Jared, are you ready to eat crow right now? Let's play a real football game before we start doing that. For the people that are celebrating this move like it is the end-all be-all, that it is, a sign that this team has arrived, do you expect this team to make the playoffs? And I am not talking down. This is not a, rhetorical question of, do you expect this team to make the playoffs? Yeah, we expect them to make the playoffs. Ha, 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 ha. It is not that. This is just, I'm like, serious. Do you expect this team to make the playoffs? I'm not ready to change my expectation of 5 wins. I hope that I'm wrong, because I would love for a great football season around here. I think I've earned it. Ian's earned it. You've earned it. We've all earned it. But again, serious question. How good do we expect this football team to be? Because all of the jumping for joy yesterday, and again, eat your crow, Jared Rand Carthon is cooking stuff, I think is really more reserved for December and January, when they're putting on division championship hats. And when that moment comes, I will be the first person to raise my hand in the air and say, you guys were right to believe in this team. You guys were right to believe in this coaching staff. You guys were right to believe in this quarterback. You guys were right to believe in the right tackle. All of those things. But the Ernest Jones trade there does not really change the outlook of how I feel about the Titans, even though I do think it is a very good trade. So I mean this with complete and total sincerity. I don't want anybody to think that I'm beating around the bush. I don't want anybody to think that I'm setting others up to be yelled at, though I may do some yelling. How good do you all expect the Titans to actually be this year? Do you expect the Titans to go to Chicago? I'm not saying, hey, do you hope that the Titans could go on the road, go to Chicago, play good defense? Caleb Williams is a rookie who carries a purse, and he goes out there and struggles, and you find a way to kick a field goal and win the game. Could that happen? Sure. I hope it happens. But I'm not expecting the Titans to go to Chicago week 1 and win. I expected them last year to go on the road to New Orleans and win the game. And I know they didn't. But there's a difference in kind of that disposition of, hey, I am expecting this team to go win, as opposed to, I hope things break our way and it's a good season and we win, and that. And yet I think some of you think this team's going to Chicago and they're going to go win the game. Do you expect the Titans to compete with Houston and Jacksonville for the division? And again, I am legitimately curious about this. I am not saying if you think they're going to compete with Houston, then I think you're a moron. I'm not saying that. I heard Derek an hour ago yelling and screaming about how he thinks they're going to compete with Houston and Jacksonville. Again, I don't believe that, but I do wonder if most of you think that, if I'm in the minority here. And if the answer for you is yes, that you think they're going to go on the road and you think they're going to beat Chicago week 1 because they're better than Chicago, even though Chicago has made the additions of Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze and Keenan Allen on offense, and they've made additions and changes on defense, and they had a solid team last year with no quarterback, and on paper, Chicago looks okay. But if you think the Titans should go on the road and they should beat Chicago, and you think that they are clearly better than them, and you think this team is at a point right now where they can compete with Jacksonville and they can compete with Houston, if the answer is yes, then don't worry about what I think. Don't worry that I don't feel that way about this team, that I am very nervous for the offense, cautiously optimistic they'll run the football more than I think a lot of people around here hope they will, and that the defense can get by. But don't worry about that if that's what I think. But I just have a really hard time changing my mind as to what I think the Titans are. And that is with a lot of positivity over the last 2 days. You can say this show isn't positive. You can do whatever you want. But for the last 2 days, we were very excited, very positive about the performance in New Orleans, and very positive yesterday about the Ernest Jones trade. And again, I hadn't heard of Ernest Jones until 2 days ago, but all of the info says this guy's a pretty solid player. and they didn't give up anything to get him. That's a good trade. Now, I still am wondering a little bit, if this guy was so good, why are the Rams like, yeah, we just get rid of him and not replace him and it'll be fine? That I have a hard time understanding. But again, when it comes to this team, do you guys think like this is a playoff team? Do you think this team, I believe they are 4.5-point underdogs at Chicago week 1. Do you think this team should go on the road and should beat Chicago? And do you think that the addition of Ernest Jones is the reason for that? That's the question I have. Is this move that big of a deal that all of a sudden today you can put your hand down on the table and you can say, this team can compete, and they can compete because they've made moves like Quandre Diggs, like Jamal Adams, like Ernest Jones, and that's enough. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. That's how we're starting. 615-737-1025 here on the program. I did hear Derek talking about the fact that, oh, no, they've got an easy schedule now. And I told Derek on his way out, I said, they don't. And he was like, no, it's a 4th place schedule. It's easy. I'm like, yeah, but this is the unfortunate year where you draw into Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert as 4th place finishers. Normally you get some bad teams when you finish 4th. You get the Patriots. Now you do get Washington, which is simply because you finished 4th. But the 2 teams you draw in the AFC because you finished 4th are Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025. That's how we're starting today. Is the Ernest Jones trade enough for you to say, you know what? This is a deal that makes the team so much better that I now think they're going to Chicago, they're going to win. And I think this team's competing for the playoffs. Is it that big of a deal to you? 615-737-1025. Plus, Sean McVay asked about the trade. What he had to say, we'll get to that next, and your phones. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
will you guys at all be looking at possibly adding a veteran linebacker to that group?
No, we feel great about the linebacker group. So you guys are all shocked, but we feel really good about, I have a ton of respect for Ernest, and I'm excited about what he'll do in Tennessee and what he's meant here. But this was a decision that we feel like is best for our football team with the guys that we have. I think Troy Reeder and Roseboom are excellent. I think Jake Hummel's got versatility, and I couldn't be more impressed with Omar Spates and his emergence as a young, undrafted rookie free agent making the team. Eli Neal's another guy, and we've got a bunch of different things that we can do personnel-wise with some of the guys that we have on the back end and on our front. And doesn't take anything away from Ernest, but every decision that we make, and I think you guys know me well enough now, is what we think is best for our football team, and this is in alignment with that.
That was Sean McVay. So that was his explanation on the Ernest Jones trade when, hey, Sean, now that you guys have traded away the great Ernest Jones, are you going to make an addition to this football team? And McVay's like, no, we like all these guys. By the way, every single player that he mentioned, Ian, have you heard of any of them?
No.
I haven't either. And so we know Sean McVay is a good coach. I am not poo-pooing the Ernest Jones edition because he's got to be better than Jack Gibbons. I know he's better than Jack Gibbons. So you're a better football team because of it. I think about this, and again, I've never watched this guy play, so I am talking through my ass, and I want everybody to know that when I say what I'm about to say. I feel like they got David Long Jr. back yesterday. That's kind of how I feel. Again, just based on paper, I did not watch the guy play, so maybe I shouldn't say crazy stuff like that, but that's what I feel. But is he that important? Like that all of a sudden now you're a playoff contender because of it? Sean McVay does not think that even though he recovered, or he had, I think it was 9 tackles in the playoff game. Didn't Trevor say he forced a fumble in the playoff game against Detroit last year?
I think that is true. I think that's what he said. Yeah, somebody in YouTube put it in there for just a sec. I can't remember.
So the last game he played in, he was dominant. And even then, Sean McVay is like, nah, we don't need him.
2 sacks and 1 tackle for loss.
I mean, Jesus, that's incredible. And still, Sean McVay's like, nah, don't need him. So I'm like, okay, how much does this move the needle in terms of winning and losing? And then again, the celebrating yesterday, like, oh, we're the best. Oh, God, yes. Let Rand cook. They're the best. I'm like, is it really that big of a deal with an inside linebacker trade? Even if you reacquired David Long Jr., would it have been for a 7th round draft pick? Because that's basically what you gave up in order to make this deal. Would that even be worth the, oh, they got David Long Jr. back. All's great in the world. It's going to be. Is it really that? 615-737-1025. Our phone line's today driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com on the program. Again, Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan at 3:30. And they have made some roster moves. I hate to say it because, people are like, hey, these are people, not just athletes. They are. I saw today the Titans cut Rashad Weaver. They claimed some guy never heard of who Caroline played at LSU. So Caroline knows about him, says his last name is Gay, and he's from the Texans. And they acquired him, and I don't know anything about him, but Caroline says he's solid against the run, probably doesn't get much after the quarterback. And they cut Weaver. And they also claimed a DB from the Cowboys named Wood. And so I saw the big news for me is that they cut Weaver. Is it wrong to say good riddance? But I'm glad Rashad Weaver's gone. I am so sick and tired of watching Rashad Weaver get opportunity after opportunity to go out there and do nothing. He was handed Harold Landry's starting spot when Harold Landry tore his ACL apart. And they said, okay, here's your chance. Go out, go get him, go do it, go this. And midway through the year, they're like, nah, we'd rather play Mario Edwards Jr. Then all of a sudden, we think Arden Key's getting suspended. And it's like, okay, here comes Weaver. This is his opportunity. And I'm like, all right, let's see what he does. And he ends up getting passed up for Jalen Harrell. And now the team's like, yeah, we don't even want him. Get rid of him. And I have to tell you, I'm glad the Titans did that because I'm over Weaver. I'm ready to move on. Good riddance. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Adam in Portland's going to kick us off today. Adam, go ahead.
Jared, I feel like the question's almost rhetorical.
I said it wasn't.
Well, if you look at it, name, a couple of middle linebackers in history, Mike Singletary, Ray Lewis, Patrick Willis, guys like that are the only ones who are moving the needle for their football team. I don't think he makes us a contender. Obviously, it's a good piece. It's a move in the right direction. You said that, but I think what helped, and this, nobody can say whether or not it's going to happen, but Brian Callahan is going to be the 11-6 or 6-11 factor. Like, we don't know if he knows how to call plays in the NFL. So I'm going to lean on that, and I'll lean on it heavily with you until week 1. But, he's my factor, man. Either he knows how to do it well or he doesn't. Bengals fans on my page seem to think he sucks, and it's going to be run, pass. But if he's good, then I think we could be an 11-win team. I think we could be a good football team.
Why would Bengal fans think that when the Bengals offense was good when he was there and they were never run, pass?
Everybody that I've seen on my page seems to think he is a boring pickup. But if he's good at it, then I think we could be a really good football team.
Thank you for your call, Adam. I do think that there is going to be some, again, the difference between 11-6, or what is it, 10-7 and 7-10 is a couple of plays here and there. And I don't know what that factor is going to be. Surely the coach is a big part of it. I really don't know what Brian Callahan's going to do. I thought Sunday was kind of a glimpse into when Brian Callahan wants to draw something up, he's going to draw something up that on paper, in theory, it should work. Because I felt like he schemed that first drive on Sunday to give the offense confidence, which I think was the right thing to do. I also think clearly they have the common sense factor to get rid of the dead weight like Weaver. Now, I do think it's pretty funny that they have no problem getting rid of John Robinson's dead weight. Goodbye, Caleb Farley. Goodbye, Malik Willis. Though Malik was a trade, and I think that they probably would have kept Malik had they not gotten the deal with the Packers. But goodbye to the John Robinson guys, Weaver and Malik and Farley and those guys, but not Jalen Duncan, not a guy they picked last year who stinks. No. Do you think that's kind of quaint of them? But you see that around the league. That's always how it is it's, the last guy picked him. He's no good. We picked him. No, he can be good. You just give him a chance. I don't know what the factor is between the difference between 7-10 and 10-7 for this team. It might be the coach. Adam's right. It might be the guys you pay all the money to. Ridley, Snead, Simmons, those guys. Like, can Calvin Ridley make one or two plays that Treylon Burks or whoever was replacing Treylon Burks last year couldn't make, and that be the difference in a game or two? I mean, you know that I do have to think that they're better without Craig Aukerman coaching the special teams. That I think we can agree with. Scott from Franklin says David Long Jr. was good. Ernest Jones is very, very good. I mean, are we really at the point where we're going to say this guy's better than David Long Jr.? Because David Long Jr. was very good. If you tell me Ernest Jones is David Long Jr., which is what I think they're getting, I mean, that makes you better. Absolutely makes you better with some of these teams. One texter says, I'm not overly hyped about some of the Titans fans on the pickup, but let me say this, he is far more consistent and more available than David Long Jr. Well, I don't think you can be more consistent than David Long Jr. That guy went out there when he played, and he was out there making plays every game. Every single game he was making plays. More available, that's a different discussion. Now, it should be noted that David Long Jr. went to Miami, and he was available last year for the Dolphins. So whatever Vrabel or the grass or, not that Joe or Paul would ever allow you to have this opinion, the training staff, whatever it was here wasn't working for David Long, was not a problem in Miami. And there's the talk about the knee injury that he supposedly had that I think I heard Joe say this morning. No, it was Paul said this morning that a source said the knee should be fine. But we'll just keep that in mind. But if he's better than David Long Jr., then I do think that's probably worth a win or two, especially being the center of your defense. But I don't think the Rams think that he's that good. I don't think the Rams think he's that big of a deal, or else they wouldn't have given him away for absolutely nothing. And that's where I'm like, okay, so if he's better than Long Jr. then that is a big deal because Long Jr. was a very, very good player. And I think it was a very hard piece for them to replace. And last year they were just winging it. And when you just wing it the way that they've been winging it, that's how you end up with Jack Gibbons on the field. And Jack Gibbons is not a starting NFL linebacker. So I hope this guy's Long Jr. If he is, it does make a difference. One texter says they would not have kept Malik. I don't know, man. They've already claimed 2 guys. They've already gotten rid of Weaver. They're probably going to have to get rid of somebody else. Think about this. I have a list of 8 guys on the football team that do not belong in the NFL, that are practice squad players. Whether it's Mike Brown or Jalen Duncan or John Ojukwu or Andrew Rupchich or Thomas Odukoya or Julius Chestnut or whomever. Practice squad players. And Weaver got cut before those guys. What does that tell you? 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Plus, did you hear the smoke from Big Joe Dubin this morning? I was a little surprised. Talk about a heater. We'll do that in your phone. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 is our phone number here on what has been a very exciting so far, very exciting start to Stillman and Company. Tune into the college football game of the week this Saturday at 6:30 as Notre Dame takes on Texas A&M, the college football game of the week presented by Twin Peaks. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports.
Got a little bone to pick to Robbie Stanley. Listen to
Okay.
him this morning. Robbie thinks his Titans team is going to win the Super Bowl. He's like, that defense is fantastic now. Just fantastic. They've got a great shot. I was like, Robbie, if they win 5 games, Callahan should be coach of the year. You got corners who haven't practiced. You got corners who haven't practiced with the secondary. That defensive line, yeah, Sweat was okay. How's he going to hold up week 3, 4, 5, 6? I don't know. We don't know, right? You know, is Buck Rising going to send a tweet at Simmons after game 1 and he'll just kind of melt down and not play the rest of the season? I don't know. Harold Landry, is he back to 2018, 2019, wherever it was Harold Landry that was so good? Kenneth Murray was the lowest rated linebacker in free agency. Chargers couldn't wait to get rid of him, right? So the Titans got him. Maybe he finds out why he's good here. That's fine. It's great. But I'm not counting on that guy for anything just because he was the lowest rated linebacker that was out there in free agency. When he signed here, people were like, oh, that terrible sign. We saw it. Pro Football Focus, one of those analytic nerd groups, had it out there that he wasn't any good, on and on and on. So there's a lot of questions. And my thing goes back, Chase, to the first day of pads when Simmons acted like a jackass and should have been thrown out and Callahan didn't throw him out. Right then I said, he doesn't have the guts to take this team to winning season. So my win prediction, 5 games they win.
Damn! Big Joe Dubin. And that opened the show today on Chasing Big Joe. Talk about a heater right down the middle from Big Joe. Are we used to that from Big Joe?
Not always.
I mean, Big Joe geared up and right down the pipe. And let me say this. If I had said that, if I had said things like, I mean, yeah, Sweat looks good now, but week 2, week 3, week 4, what do we think? And is Simmons going to get mad at Buck and then not play and act like a crybaby the rest of the season? People would be going nuclear if I said that. But I heard that today from Big Joe. And I heard that. I'm like, you know what? I'm not the only person that sees what is a good trade and says, all right, calm down, people. It's not the end of the world. And that's what I think Big Joe's getting at. My favorite part of that entire cut, play it again. The very, very beginning of the cut is my favorite part.
Got a little bone to pick to Robbie Stanley. Listen to him this morning. Robbie thinks his Titans team is going to win the Super Bowl. He's like,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I listened to Robbie and Joe this morning. I didn't walk away from it saying, oh, Robbie thinks the Titans are really good now. That was not my comprehension of what they said. But it's just hilarious that that's what I feel like Twitter's become because the Titans made this trade for Ernest Jones that everybody for the last 24 hours has been acting like they just went out and made a trade for CJ Stroud. It's like, whoa, guys, chill out. Calm down a little bit. It's okay. It's okay. By the way, you know what? Never mind. I listened to the Levis on Bussin' with the Boys. It was fine. Like, it was interesting, I guess. But there wasn't, like, any real nuggets worth of juice in there that's like, Will Levis says on Bussin' with the Boys, whereas, like, Derrick Henry would go on there, spend an entire season of getting up at the podium saying, yeah, we're just really focused on this week. And, yeah, it'll be okay. And just working to get better every day. And, yeah, we'll be. And then Derrick Henry's like, yeah, I almost got traded, boys. I wanted to get traded so bad. It's like, whoa. Levis didn't have any of that. But there was one thing in there in which I honestly was like, this is why I can't handle Titans fans. But we'll get to that later. One texter says, Jared, I think the Jones trade wasn't for just this year. If I remember correctly, this is the last year on his rookie contract. And if he plays like what everybody says he is, then he could be a good piece for the future. Well, if that's the case, you've got 11 days to sign him to a contract. Because what have we learned around here? If somebody is a good player and they play well and they are on an expiring contract, you are most likely to lose that player. The Titans signed Calvin Ridley because the money that they had allocated elsewhere, and I believe that money was the money for Azeez Al-Shaair and Danico Autry, those guys ended up getting more money at Houston. I wouldn't have paid Azeez $11 million. So I understand it. So the way to combat that is to sign a guy before the start of the season to a new contract. So if you're like, hey, if this guy is all that in a bag of chips, then we can sign him for the future, Jared. And it's like, right, but you're not going to be able to because then he's going to go out into free agency and somebody's going to do what the Texans did with Azeez, where they pay him so much money that it's like, yeah, you can't afford to pay that guy. Liam says eventually the Titans will hit a tipping point where all of the additions will add up to a playoff spot. I'm not sure they are there yet, but the odds keep increasing. In January, I would have thought 3 to 7 wins was the potential, but the top is much higher now, even though everything could still crash and burn. So maybe we shouldn't say that expectations are high, but we should say that hope should be high. Aren't expectations and hope kind of brother and sister? Like if you're hopeful for a good season, I mean, I get the idea of saying, hey, on one hand, I hope that Will Levis becomes Dan Marino. I'm not expecting Will Levis to become Dan Marino, but I hope that Will Levis becomes Dan Marino. That I get. So maybe we could be hopeful. Hell, I'm hopeful. I know you guys aren't going to believe this, but I am hopeful that I am wrong. I am hopeful that I am wrong about right tackle. I am hopeful that I am wrong about the state of the offense after what I saw in those joint practices against Seattle. I hope that I am wrong about L'Jarius Sneed's knees and the fact that nobody else would take a shot on it except for you, that you must be smarter than everybody else. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope I'm wrong about Simmons, where I feel like the local fans here treat him like Warren Sapp, and he ain't Warren Sapp. At least he hasn't been that on the field yet. But I don't expect any of those things. But I am hopeful. So I guess there can be a dichotomy there. Good take, Liam. That I think I can go with. One texter says the new guys help, but it's still all about Levis and whether or not he can direct the team and be good. See, here's where I disagree with that. Because everybody will tell you that, well, let's see if Will Levis can be the guy. Well, how about let's put Will Levis in position to be the guy? And here's where Ernest Jones does make a difference. Here's where L'Jarius Sneed does make a difference. T'Vondre Sweat does make a difference. If these guys pan out, where it makes a difference is if you've got a really good defense and you run the football effectively, which I think they can do with Tony Pollard. If that's what you do, now you're asking Will Levis to go score you 18 points a game instead of asking Will Levis to score you 28 points a game. And that's a difference. If your defense can't hold and Levis, because you're down the whole time, has to drop back and the defense can pin their ears back and come after the quarterback, and now he's got to throw the ball 40 times a game instead of you being able to dictate that he throws it 19 and you run it 26, that's a problem. People seem to forget there was a game late last season. I believe it was in December. The game that led to the JV Texans game here. The one where the Texans had everybody hurt. The Texans went on the road to New York, and it rained. And in that game, Dalton Schultz was out, and Tank Dell was out, and Nico Collins got hurt in the game, and it was raining, so the conditions weren't as good, and Zach Wilson outplayed C.J. Stroud. I believe Tunsil might have been out that week. Again, everybody got hurt to the point that you played the JV team the next week here at Nissan Stadium. But C.J. Stroud was not good. If you had watched that game, you would have said, this guy sucks. And I said, see, it's a lot tougher when there's bad weather and you don't have your $30 million left tackle and you don't have all your weapons on offense and now it's tough. Now you're playing like Zach Wilson against Zach Wilson. So I understand that at some point the quarterback's got to become the force multiplier. But Josh Allen wasn't that year two in the league. He's that now. That is why I've always looked at Mahomes and I've said, look, Mahomes has incredible talent. Levis has great talent. Anthony Richardson probably has the most talent of any quarterback in the NFL. But unlike Anthony Richardson's team that said, we're going to stick you out there as a rookie when you've played one season of football in your life as a quarterback. We're going to stick you out there as a rookie. We're going to let you get beat up so you only play 4 games and then waste the rest of the year in the hospital. Kansas City said, we're going to stick you behind a very bright veteran quarterback. We're going to give you the best wide receiver in the NFL and the best tight end, and we're going to give you the best offensive coach. I think it makes a difference. So when you're talking about all that matters this year is whether or not Levis is the guy, they have to do things in order to set Levis up so that it is easier for him to become the guy. I hope that makes sense. It's like Ryan Porth and I were texting today. You know, he's in Chicago now helping run that station there. And I said to Porth, I go, will it be a total meltdown in Chicago if the Titans go in there week 1 and win? And he said, probably, because everybody in Chicago thinks it's a slam dunk that the Bears are going to win week 1. He said, but if they lose, but Caleb looks good, then I think, you know, the fans would be okay with it. And I said, there's no way that the Titans are going to win that game if Caleb Williams looks good. Because the Titans are going to be, if they win early on especially, it's going to be because of their defense. So it won't be because Caleb threw for 330 and they lost. That ain't going to happen. I think we all know that. Because this team's got to be kind of built by its defense. This team's got to be but at the end of the day, what do we judge a quarterback on? Winning and losing. That's all we do. I have no idea how many yards Jalen Hurts threw for a couple years ago, but I know they got to the Super Bowl. And Jalen got his big contract. We judge the quarterback on winning and losing. So it's all about, okay, can these guys give Levis a chance where he only has to score 18 points? Can Tony Pollard carry the load on offense so that Levis isn't being beaten like a pinata? Can PT hold up at right tackle? So that those things all matter if Levis is going to become the guy. And they know that. Like, I know the Titans know that. I know the fans probably don't because it's just like, go quarterback. It's like when I watch the Steve McNair documentary and the season they talk about is the 1999 season. McNair wasn't even that good in 1999. McNair he played the first game and then he missed like 5 straight games and Neil O'Donnell went 4-1. It was a massive part of that season. McNair was really good in 2002 and 2003. Those are the years that are like, yo, that's when Steve McNair took over because they went to the Super Bowl in 99. That's the year that the documentary features. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Chris Sanders, as always, will join us next. His reaction to the Titans roster, his reaction to some of the moves they've made today, and his reaction to what he saw on Sunday against the Saints. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number here on Stillman and Company. And let me tell all the fine folks out there that the Nashville Sounds are taking on Charlotte on 94.9 The Fan at 5:35. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. We got college football this Saturday. That's right, Vandy football. The Commodores will host Virginia Tech with a pregame beginning at 9:30 a.m. and kickoff at 11 on Saturday. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. And then 93.3 Totally Hits this Saturday will have MTSU as the Blue Raiders will kick off the season at home and take on Tennessee Tech. Big Joe Dubin will be on the call for the broadcast, the pregame at 4:30, and kickoff is at 6 o'clock, and coverage there available on the 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. So again, I look on paper, I see this Ernest Jones trade. I'm like, this looks like a very good trade for the Titans. But for some reason, the Rams are just like, yep, just take them. Just take them. Don't worry about it. Sean McVay, we played the cut. Sean McVay asked about it. Are you going to go get somebody to replace Ernest Jones? Like, nah, we got all these guys, and mentioned a bunch of names that I'd never heard of. So is it that big of a move? Is it not that big? What do we make of it? Former Titans receiver Chris Sanders joins us on the program now, presented by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. So, Chris, let's start there with the Ernest Jones trade.
Yeah.
One, what'd you think of it? And B, and two, how much of a better team are the Titans with the move? Are they, significantly better? Are they kind of better? What do you make of it?
I think they're better. I mean, if you look at this linebacker position last year, it was okay. I think I'm not going to say a lot better. It's got a step better. I mean, you got some good linebackers. You got Kenneth Murray, you got Ernest Jones, you got Otis Reese. You got guys that can fly around to the ball. So, is it Otis?
Otis Reese. Mix the two names together.
Like PT. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's really good because these guys, first of all, these guys can cover space. These guys can run. And you want a guy at that position that has great instincts, and just looking at him on film and just kind of looking at his career so far, I mean, he has great instincts. So I think it's a great asset for the Tennessee Titans.
Okay, Chris, let's take it a step further when it comes to the Titans and what they're looking at right here. A lot of the Titans on the 53-man roster, I was a little surprised by, not that there was anybody that they cut that I was like, oh, no, why'd you cut him? But there's a lot of guys they kept. Every GM, every coach, every year gets up there and they say, these are really hard decisions to make. And, who we're going to keep, who we're not going to keep. It's very, very hard to decide on. And then I remember when Floyd used to do 53-man rosters, get to 49, and then be like, all right, you pick whoever else you want on there. This team has too many guys that I'm not convinced are NFL players. And I do wonder how much of a concern that is. 5 tight ends? Like, what do you make of it?
I mean, it is wild because, I never heard of Nick Vanette. Am I pronouncing his name right? I've never heard of that guy. I think this is a prime example. It just shows you when you play good in the last preseason game, they're looking at you. So I was kind of surprised by having so many tight ends. And then you look at the situation in the secondary. I mean, you got Janarius Sneed and you got Awuzie that, knock on wood, that, they've been hurt in the past. So as for me, I'm not going to say I'm a general manager. I'm not going to say that. But I'm going to make sure I have depth at the cornerback as opposed to, the tight end because of those two guys been hurt. That's how I would look at it.
Again, 4 corners? Have you ever seen it? Now, I know they claimed Wood from the Cowboys today. Right. I have no idea if that guy's any good or not. Certainly he couldn't be worse than Avery. But, I mean, I've never seen that. That is to have 4 corners when 2 of them are hurt.
Yeah.
Like that. What do we make of that?
I mean, that's wild because if you look at Snead, he really hasn't played in the off season. So the verdict, no disrespect, the verdict is still out there if he's completely healthy. So that is kind of a concern. But at the end of the day, he's going to be ready and go out there and play. But just like what you said, only 4 corners. You want to have depth at that position, especially when you have Awuzie and especially when you have Snead that has, knock on wood, that they've been consistently hurt. So that was the biggest surprise what I saw about the roster.
Chris Sanders is our guest, presented by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. So there's a narrative. Corey Curtis called me today, and I didn't jump Corey for this, and I should have. There is a narrative that the Titans broadcast was pitching on Sunday, which was not only are they going to go with Radens and Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT
at right tackle, but that those guys won the job. They were not that Radens got the job because the guy ahead of him quit, and not that PT got the job because the other 2 guys competing for it suck. So my question for you is this.
Yeah.
Do you actually buy that the right side of the line is that they won the job, that we should be encouraged, that we shouldn't be nervous, that PT and Radens are going to hold it down? Are you drinking that Kool-Aid?
I think I am drinking the
No,
Kool-Aid.
you
I'm going
are
to go ahead
not.
and say
You
that.
are not. You
Yes,
cannot
I
have
am.
that
I'm
kind of
drinking it.
answer and then say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
You know the reason why I'm drinking a Kool-Aid and its flavor is because, number one, and I know we've been saying this all year, but the coach that they have has developed players and made players into average players into
That is
great
true.
players. So that's the reason why I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, because when you have a coach that develops players, develops guys, and develops them and having a great skill set, I would say, yes, I am drinking the Kool-Aid. You got Dillon, you got Nicholas PT, but their technique is better, and they gotten better, not just as smart players, but just, developing their skills. So I'm saying yes because of their coach, not because of them, because of their coach.
What did you think of the game on Saturday? Anything you can
Ooh.
take away, given that the Saints
Yes.
played all backups?
Yeah, you know what? And you're going to laugh when I say this, but I looked at Rudolph in the last couple of years. I did not know this guy was that accurate.
Oh, my
dude,
God.
I'm telling you something, man.
The
I'm telling
Mason
you.
Rudolph Bozo
Oh my
crew,
gosh.
Joe
Oh my
Rexrode,
gosh. There we go.
Trevor
I'm
Maddich,
drinking the Kool-Aid.
Chris
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
Sanders.
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and it's strawberry grape and
So
fruit.
should we have a quarterback controversy, Chris?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, if you look at last year, if you look at all the starting quarterbacks that got hurt, the teams that were successful had a quality backup. Now, if I'm not just saying this, Will Levis he's a gamer. He's going to try to run through people's lips and not slide. So just imagine if he gets hurt the first game. You're still going to be in good hands with Rudolph. Why? Because watching him in practice, watching him in the preseason games, this is my opinion, he was just as consistent or even better than Will Levis. So I'm not creating a controversy. I'm just saying that you're in good hands if Will Levis goes down. Why? Because Mason Rudolph can make some plays.
Okay, the Titans have made a pair of roster moves today with the 2 waiver claims they made. 2 guys, we haven't heard of these guys, an outside linebacker named Gay and a DB named Wood. They have cut Rashad Weaver and Nick Vanette.
Wow.
What do you make of them cutting Weaver?
Wow.
Chris, I hate to say it.
Wow.
Good
Weaver.
riddance. Good riddance.
You don't like Weaver?
I'm done with Weaver. He doesn't do anything, Chris. This is the last 2 days have been the smartest that this operation has. I mean, the
Weaver was
smartest
just coming
moves
into
they've
his own
made
a little bit
since AJ Brown got traded.
He's been coming to his own a little
bit. Weaver stinks. Weaver stinks. He looks like he should be good, but every time he gets an opportunity, he's terrible. He sucks. I'm glad he's gone.
Okay, so you think he's better than Luke Gifford?
Who, Weaver?
Yeah, Weaver.
Well, they play a different position. Like, I think he's probably better than PT, but I mean, PT is going to be on the team because he's right tackle.
Oh my God. So you tell me the 2 players that they brought in is better than Weaver?
Probably. Weaver doesn't do anything, Chris.
Oh my gosh. Dude, if you look at last year, when he was in the game, he was consistently around the ball.
He had 0 sacks last year. What are you talking about? He blew the Kansas City game 2 years ago.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to get you to watch film, man. One day you're going to sit down and watch film. It's not
you need to go over to Rand Carthon's office and sit down with him and Chad Brinker and all the other people that make decisions over there.
Okay.
Because they're the ones who cut him, not me.
Fair. That's a fair assessment. Absolutely.
So I have a take, Chris Sanders with us. I have a take that I think Titan fans, they don't get upset about it because I do think that there's probably a chance that this is true. I think this offense needs to run through Tony Pollard. I think Tony Pollard is the best player on the offense, and I think they need to get the ball in his hands both by throwing it to him and by running him, and I think it'll take pressure off the young quarterback and then 100%. Use the receivers they have to augment the game around Tony Pollard. I know they don't want to be the Derrick Henry run-first Titans anymore, but I do think that Tony Pollard's the best player on the offense. Is that crazy?
That I agree with you 100%. And the reason why, anytime you want to throw the football, anytime you want to throw the ball down the field or even do play action, you have to have a good run game. Because if you don't have a good run game, those linebackers are going to sit there and just wait for the pass or something coming across the middle or a shallow cross. So you want to have a guy that can run the ball. And also don't forget about Spears. I mean, Spears can be that guy too. But Pollard is that guy how can I say this? He's an impact player. He impacts the game. And just watching what he does and the things that he brings to the table in this offense, he doesn't just run to the tackles. He doesn't just run the edge. I mean, he can take a ball running through the A and B gap and take it the distance. I love what he does with his feet. I love his vision, and I love that he lowers his shoulder and run through somebody's lips. So I agree with you 100% that this guy can actually be the guy on this offense.
Chris Sanders, as always, presented by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Chris, we got to talk about something.
What?
You've been doing this spot on Wednesdays at 2:45 for how long?
I would say 8-9 years.
I mean, I think the Stillman and Company program, which was formerly Jared and the GM, I think it's an 8-year-old program at this point.
Wow.
So the Titans have announced today what they expect the media to be like during the week. And Will Levis's press conference is going to be every Wednesday at 2:30.
Oh, you kicking me off?
Well, I just don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. Is Will Levis going to say enough stuff that it's worth, saying, hey, Chris, we got to move you somewhere. Is it worth moving Chris Sanders,
heck
who has
no.
been a staple of this program for 8 years in the exact same spot? Pandemic or no pandemic, it was Chris 2:45 on Wednesdays. Football season, basketball season, hockey season, whatever.
Oh.
What do we do? We'll have to
I
figure
don't
that out.
know, man. Hey, we got to figure it out. Hey, whatever it is, man, I'm actually good with it. No worries at all, brother.
Well, we're not kicking you out. That's for sure. The people love
Oh,
you
no.
because you
I
say
love y'all
crazy
too,
stuff.
man.
That's the crazy Uncle Chris. Chris Sanders, as always, joining us on the program. Chris, we'll talk maybe next week at this time, maybe next week at another time.
Let's say a goodbye song. You got to sing a goodbye song to me, man.
Go ahead and sing it. By the way, great win for NBA over the weekend.
Oh, man, what a crazy game, man. A 53-yard field goal with 12 seconds left in the game. Absolutely bananas.
How
Great
does
win
it make you feel that your high school kicker can kick it further than the Titans kicker?
What?
Chris Sanders, as always,
Goodbye,
on the
man.
program. Appreciate you,
brother.
Chris.
Love you, man. Bye-bye.
Chris Sanders joining us as he always does here. I mean, 53, is that bad? I saw that NBA I think they beat Pearl Cone.
I think it was Pearl Cone.
NBA won on a 53-yarder at the end of the game. And as soon as I saw that, I saw it on Twitter and I was like, NBA's kicker can kick it further than Nick Folk. How about that?
Okay.
Also, Narveson claimed today by the Packers.
I saw that.
If the Packers wanted Narveson, why didn't they just include him in the Willis deal? Like, why wasn't it Willis and Narveson for a seventh? If the Titans knew they were going to cut Narveson and the Packers wanted to claim Narveson,
would the Titans have done that?
Why wouldn't they? They're going to cut him.
Maybe. I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe they're like, hey, I don't know. Fair point. Sounds like the Titans are making another small little move here, too, according to Ian Rappaport.
Give it to me.
The Titans are finalizing a trade for defensive back Elijah Molden to the Chargers in exchange for a late-round draft pick.
Normally they don't make moves where I'm like, I don't know what to think of this. But
they claimed a defensive back today from the Cowboys.
Wood?
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, the problem today wasn't that they had the right amount of defensive backs going into the season. It was that they needed more defensive backs. So they claimed a defensive back. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then they get rid of a defensive back. I don't know. We'll react to that next. 615-737-1025, even though Chris did trigger me with his Mason Rudolph comments. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ran Carthon and Callahan in 25 minutes, and we will have that live and in its entirety. So I originally, at 3 o'clock, wanted to talk about the Titans roster. Then I wanted to talk about Ernest Jones some more because I had it in the 2 o'clock segment, an opinion about Ernest Jones that I wanted to get out there, but we got to your phones faster than I thought we were going to today. And so I pushed it back. And then Chris Sanders triggered me about Mason Rudolph because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the half of the population and people that
More
have
than
working brains, like Chris Sanders and Trevor Maddich, they have working brains.
Tim Hasselbeck.
Hasselbeck has a working brain, though.
You're the only one that doesn't like Mason Rudolph.
He sucks. Me and Mike Tomlin are the only people in the world who thinks he's a bum. And so that got me all triggered. But then Ian said, hey, we got news from Ian Rappaport. The Titans have traded Elijah Molden to the Chargers for a late round draft choice. And let me say this. I am very conflicted with this Molden trade because on one hand, I don't think Molden's very good. I don't think Molden was a very good corner, and I don't think Molden was a very good safety. I don't think Elijah Molden's very fast. I don't think Elijah Molden's very big. And I don't think Elijah Molden can tackle very well. I also don't think he can run very fast. But at the same time, when I see that trade, all I can think in my head is, why? This team needs more defensive backs, not less defensive backs. And at least with Molden, there is some sort of capability that in a pinch, if he has to go play corner, he can go play corner. So when you break camp with 4 corners, 2 of whom are hurt, it's like, well, you know, at the end of the day, if we have to put Elijah Molden there, who's our 4th safety, but if we also have to put him out there in order to play corner, we can. So that's how we can get by with not having any corners. Fine. But now you just trade him for nothing. And it's like, okay, so if somebody gets hurt, which seems more likely than not, because A, this is the NFL, but B, you're relying on L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, and Jamal Adams, all of whom I think practiced a combined 4 practices at training camp this year. If somebody gets hurt, who are you going to? And the answer would have been Molden. Again, I don't think Molden's very good. When the Titans were pushing this idea, similar to Jack Gibbons, when the Titans were pushing this idea in the OTAs that Molden could be the answer at safety, I was like, no, he is not a starting safety in the NFL. He's not a starting corner. He's not a starting safety. But I do think Molden is a backup. And so, if nothing else, at least they're consistent. They gave away Kevin Byard for a bag of footballs last year, and Elijah Molden is a lot worse than Kevin Byard. So it doesn't surprise me that they're going to get half the bag of footballs that they got for Byard for Molden, and I'm fine with it. But at some point, it's kind of like Burks. You can get rid of Burks if you want to take a 6th or a 7th round pick in return. But at some point, having Treylon Burks as your 4th or 5th receiver is more valuable than the 6th or 7th round pick. Because somebody's going to get hurt, and when somebody gets hurt, that's when you stick Treylon Burks in there. And maybe this time, the 15th try will be the one that gets it done, and Treylon Burks will be successful. That's how I feel about Molden. If this entire season is about setting up the young quarterback so that the young quarterback can be the guy, you probably don't get better by getting rid of a, albeit not a great insurance policy, but he was at least an insurance policy that they had. And now he's gone. So somebody help me out with that. And again, I am by no means an Elijah Molden fan because I don't think Elijah Molden's very good. But I also know what bad is. And if you don't have any corners and the 2 guys you do have get hurt, then you go down to the practice squad. Did you hear what Ian said in the update? Trey Avery's on the practice squad.
He's back.
Now you're putting Trey Avery in the game.
Well, didn't we see Molden get burned a few times by Christian Kirk?
I mean, in his first
And-
game as a rookie, yeah. He can't run. I'm not saying he can run.
So when he gets put in those positions, I'm not sure it's going to work out. And he was playing in the preseason game. He made one tackle.
Who would you
and
rather
he got
have?
hurt
What, Awuzie gets hurt or Snead gets hurt?
on the outside. Trey Avery.
You would rather no. Would you rather have McCreary on the outside and Molden at nickel, or would you rather have Avery on the outside and McCreary at nickel? This is not hard, by the way. Ian's staring deep and long, and it's like a putt where Jim Nance has already announced, and now it's like Victor Hovland on 17.
Well, I mean, if one of those goes down, I think you have to put McCreary outside regardless.
So again, if it's between,
And then I would put Trey Avery in the slot over Molden.
Oh my God. Then if that's the case, you must think this is a great trade.
I don't dislike the trade.
I dislike it.
I don't dislike it.
I
no.
dislike it. I want,
especially since they claim this. Was it Love? Julius
no
Wood. Julius Wood.
But is he a safety or is he a corner? I thought he was a corner.
Said defensive back.
Oh God, that
so
means
I don't
he's a
know.
safety.
So I think he's a hybrid. He's
Go
a Molden.
get some
he's
corners.
He's a different type of Molden. He can do both, maybe.
Go get some corners. You need corners. You can never have enough corners. You have 4, and 2 of them are hurt. Am
Well,
I
they
the
have-
only person on the planet
Gave
that thinks
Judy
this is
Lawley
ridiculous?
back to the practice squad as well.
They think he sucks because they cut him over Thomas Odukoya.
Anthony Kendall back to the practice squad.
He sucks. I mean, again, Molden's better than those guys. Molden's not good, but he's better than those guys. Also, I am laughing my tush off at the amount of people that thought that like Elijah Molden could be an answer at safety for this team. Like I kept saying, like, no, there's no way they're going to do that. Justin Mello has some info on the Elijah Molden front. Justin Mello says that he was told that Elijah Molden was unhappy in Tennessee. Now he's been traded to the Chargers, hence the Julius Wood waiver claim. So apparently Molden wanted out. Now let me just say this. If Molden wanted out, then I feel a little different about it because I don't think Elijah Molden is in a position to be wanting out. So congratulations to Elijah Molden if he actually wanted out. He got a trade, and now half of his salary is going to be taken in taxes because he's going out to L.A. as opposed to the Titans. But I still think you're better off on this team with having Molden in there. Not that I think he's any good, but I just don't think he's as bad as the other guys are. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones on this. 615-737-1025. Plus, we'll have Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan at 3:30. Let's talk Twice Daily. By the way, guess where I went for lunch today? Twice Daily. I actually used my app, just pulled it right up, and I got I'm a big buffalo chicken wrap guy. In fact, I'm a huge buffalo chicken wrap guy. It's my favorite food, period, hands down, is a buffalo chicken wrap. I know who makes the best buffalo chicken wraps in town. I am through and through. So they have the Nashville hot chicken wrap at Twice Daily. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give this a try because I'm a buffalo chicken guy. So let's put ranch in there and let's see with it. And I had it for lunch today and it was delicious. And not only that, everything Twice Daily has is delicious. And they've got a burger built for you. Try their new classic jalapeno ranch or Titans burger. And they're made to order so you can fix them the way you like them with your choice of cheese, veggies, and other tasting toppings. It's really easy on the app and it's really easy in the kiosk just to be able to do it. And if you're looking for a burger deal, Twice Daily's got that too. Get their $6 meal deal, including any made-to-order burger, potato wedges, and your choice of a 20-ounce Coke or Pepsi. There is no better way to get more meal for your money than Twice Daily. Twice Daily, what are you craving?
Well, 5 tight ends is certainly a surprise. You look at the corners who we talked about. I thought Gabe Judy-Lawley had a bad game in New Orleans, but I thought his body of work made him worthy. And then you figure if he doesn't make it, well, Trey Avery or Eric Arrar is making it. And they say no to all of them. Defensive linemen, only 4. They definitely are getting somebody there ASAP. And so, Callahan talked about the roster numbers and said they weren't going to check boxes and all of that. I think Ojukwu kind of reclaiming a spot there. He had so much playing time in the spring and then early camp, then NPF reemerged and he fell all the way to the 3rd team. I think most of us thought, well, he didn't take advantage of his time. He resurfaced a little bit at the end, but I think they chose ultimately that he was the best of the lot. That last offensive line spot, everybody had somebody different. I don't think many people had a Ojukwu. So he was a little bit of a surprise. But, I don't think there's any major storylines here.
That was PK, and he was talking about Ojukwu and was like, yeah, I don't think anybody thought that Ojukwu was any good. But, yeah, he makes the team. Yeah, that's the problem. Nobody that had been out at practice thought that John Ojukwu was worth keeping on the Titans, and yet the Titans thought that John Ojukwu was worth keeping on the Titans. That's kind of a problem. And now we're trying to figure out, was Julius Wood, who the Titans claimed off of waivers from the Cowboys, is he a corner or is he a safety? Because you need to have 5 corners. I would argue this team needs to have 6 corners. And I understand the idea of what PK said there, where Brian Callahan said, we're not going to check boxes. We're going to go forward with 6 guys or, 5 tight ends or whatever. We're going to put the best 53 on the team. That sounds good. But at the end of the day, you need more than 4 corners, especially when 2 of them are hurt. And it's hard for me to kind of get over that. And I use Jalen Duncan as the example here. I think Jalen Duncan stinks. And I think the Titans need to go get better players than Jalen Duncan and John Ojukwu. But I knew that Jalen Duncan was going to make the team. And Ian, did Jalen Duncan not make the team in every single one of these 53-man rosters that we put together over the last month?
I believe he did.
He made the team because somebody has to be a swing tackle on this team, even if they are god-awful. And in the case of Duncan, he is god-awful. But you still have to have one. And that is the problem with having 4 corners. I hate to say this, but I told Corey Curtis this today. I said that is very Ken Wisenhunt of them to go 5 tight ends on the opening roster and 4 corners, the way they went with 4 receivers and 5 tight ends with Ken Wisenhunt as the coach. Now, again, they've cut Nick Vannett, which is at least a good sign that they're not going to carry 5 tight ends. I do wonder why they threw him the ball as much as they did on Sunday if they were going to get rid of him. But fine. But again, what it all comes down to is you can never have enough corners. This team has 4, maybe 5, and 2 of them are hurt. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan in 10 minutes. Kyle is up next here on our program. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Kyle.
Jared, you can't be serious about Molden play nickel. He's heavy feet, man. There's no way he could do that.
You mean the position that they have played him before in the past?
Yeah, and he sucked. Like Ian said earlier, he got beat by Christian Kirk.
Yeah, he was the nickel corner on a team that was the number 1 seed in the AFC, but continue.
Yeah. Everything goes your way. All right, I was so excited.
Say something back to that.
I'm moving on like you do. I was so excited about the Ernest trade and everything, but then all of a sudden we do this Molden trade. Unless we got a 5th-round pick, I really like it because he's depth. He's been on this team for a while. He knows the defense. He's been here. He's making special teams tackles. It seems like him or Chance Campbell.
So are you mad at my take about Molden, or are you not mad at my take about Molden?
I'm not mad, dude. What are you talking about?
You called in. You're like, your take about Molden is crazy. Now, here's why I agree with you about Molden, because blah, blah. Yes.
Don't hang up. Don't hang up on me.
Go, talk, go.
Okay. Molden is a depth piece. I know they're probably maybe they're worried he'll get hurt, and then they're just going to go ahead and get rid of him. It's his last year on the contract. Look how they're drafted in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. They're getting some good players, so maybe that's what they're thinking. Just get younger and rebuild this team because, like we know, this season's all about Levis. I want to win some games, but it's all about Levis.
Well, Molden, again, thank you,
Right.
Kyle. Again, I agree with you about Molden and the depth element, which is if you're going to carry 4 corners, then you need a safety that can actually play corner if he has to. And Molden can actually play corner if he has to. I didn't say he could play it well, but he could play it if he has to. The same way that Jalen Duncan can play tackle if he has to, but he's not going to play it well. And I do think that again, helps Levis because the less amount of points the defense gives up, the less Levis has to score. And we judge the quarterback by winning and losing. I bet many of you know that Will Levis won 3 games as a starter last year. What if the defense gets a stop in overtime against the Colts? Now it's 4. And those things add up. Those things do matter. So it's a little bit every step of the way, every here, every there, everything. So I do not like it. I do think this. Every general manager, for the most part, and I think the Giants Hard Knocks, if any of you guys watched that, was a good example, where Joe Shane did have a good feel for the draft. It felt like he had no feel for free agency. And what I think this group, Ran Carthon, Chad Brinker, Anthony Robinson, whoever, the triumvirate of decision makers they have, what they've done is they've decided that they want every possible pick. Like they want, if it's a 6th round pick, we're going to go get a good player. No, they're not going to, but that's what we're going to do it, Jared. And that's why Jalen Duncan doesn't get cut because they drafted him. And it's like, no. We believe there's something there with him. We'll show you. And then the guys that the other people draft, they're like, no. We're not thinking about that. We're not. Molden, he sucks. Byard, he sucks. Get the picks for him. We want our picks. And I think that's just natural. I don't think that's like a knock on the Titans. I think that is natural. But I also think that at some point I would look at it and say, okay, what's more important? The depth that Molden gives you, given the fact that he can play safety, he can play corner if he has to, or a 6th round pick, 7th round pick in next year's draft? And the answer is Molden. Just like, again, Burks as a backup is more valuable than a 6th or a 7th round pick. One texter says Molden sucks. I agree. Gets hurt every time he touches someone. Again, I'm not a Molden guy. I don't think Molden's very fast. I don't think Molden's very big. I don't think Molden's very physical. And I think Molden gets injured. But at the same time, Molden is still better than those bozos like Trey Avery on the practice squad.
At corner, are we sure?
Yes, we are sure. Again, Kyle had no response when I said he was the starting nickel on a team that went to that was the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs.
How many games did he start that year?
I don't know.
Let me look.
Again, but you're going to look at the start. The nickel doesn't always start because you get 11 guys out there. Somebody's going to not be on the field for the Titans because they have 12 capable starters. So Kenneth Murray might not start every game because they're going to play 3 safeties, but Kenneth Murray is still going to basically be starting for the Titans.
Okay, his rookie year, he played 16 games, started 7.
Again,
4 pass defense.
Molden sucked. Like, don't make any mistake about it. But I just don't think he sucks as bad as the other guys suck. And that's the problem. That's my only issue. One texter says, Jared, if the Packers and Titans are tied in week 3 and Narveson hits a game winner in the dying seconds, should I give up as a Titans fan? No, and I'm just going to say this. I know he hit a 59-yarder. I don't think Narveson's very good. I mean, again, field goal kicking. Humans, this is how I know evolution is real. Like that we came from primates. Because every year at the Olympics, there's a world record that's broken, right? So it's like humans develop and are getting faster over time. Sometimes it's because the technology is better, the nutrition is better, the knowledge is better. And I think sometimes it's just we're getting, we're slowly but surely evolving. Well, in the NFL, being able to kick the ball from 50 yards has absolutely evolved over the years. Chris Sanders, an MBA, won a game in high school with a 53-yard kick on Friday night. Now, when I was in high school, I mean, you'd be lucky if a field goal kicker could hit a 33-yard kick, much less a 53-yard kick. So just because Narveson hit one 59-yarder does not mean that all of a sudden he's Justin Tucker. So make of that what you will. One texter's mad that I was mean to Kyle. Says, Jared, you're so rude to your callers. I don't know how your show is actually successful. I don't even think Kyle's upset about how I talk to him. Okay, let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical. Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan are next. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Summer is over, and you are ready for the kids to be back at school. And even though the kids are already back at school, you can leave your homework to Hiller. This month, enjoy back-to-school savings with offers like a $99 drain cleaning, $500 off select high-efficiency HVAC systems, $500 off new tankless water heaters, and $1,000 off whole home generators. Visit happyhiller.com today for details. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, proud supporters of the Preds of Vols and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today. Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, we are awaiting Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon at the podium when they eventually do. Ian, you've got your eye on that. Thumbs up from Ian, so that means that will be the case. Again, the news today, the Titans have claimed an outside linebacker from the Texans. They've claimed a defensive back. We don't know if he's a safety or a corner, Julius Wood. We have no idea which one he plays, but they've claimed him from the Cowboys. And the Titans have subsequently traded Elijah Molden to the LA Chargers for a late round pick, which means it's probably a 6th or a 7th. Probably a 7th, honestly. But apparently Justin Mello said that he was unhappy. So we are awaiting the coach and we are awaiting the general manager who are about to be up at the podium. The sentiment in the text line is that Molden is terrible. I understand that, but they made the move anyways. Here's Carthon and Callahan.
Yeah, go ahead and just kick it off. Going.
Ran a guy like DMR making the initial 53. What does that kind of say about the effort he put in during training camp and during the preseason?
I think it's.
Where did Rand go? Oh, there he is.
Kind of got to see what it was going to look like. When he
Do the
got
Titans not?
opportunity in the early part
Do
of
they not have a
practice
working microphone here?
before
What are we?
kicked off to games, and in every game he did something that would catch your eye. And then you started. We had the joints with Seattle, and kind of heard whispers from their guys like, "Hey, who is that guy?" And so you knew, a young, talented player like that. Teams are always looking for that developmental tight end. And had we exposed him to waiver, there was no chance we were getting back.
When did Ernest Jones?
Wait. That's great to see.
You got to do this all over again?
You don't have to do it all.
They trying to fix the microphone now?
No. When did the Ernest Jones talks begin? And can you talk about that deal a little bit and what he might bring to the team?
Yeah, Ernest is a good, young, talented linebacker in this league. Has been, since he came in, and we started conversations probably over the weekend. I've had a long-standing relationship, with Les Snead, worked together for 9 years, him and Tony Pastores. And so just started as the typical phone calls that we get this time of year. Hey, you guys looking for anybody? You guys shopping anybody? And the conversation started from there, and we looked into it and, did our research and watched the film. A bunch of us in the room, our coaches watched him and thought that he was a young player that could help us.
So out on him and the price tag is so reasonable.
Well, no, I'm not, because, I have my intel. I worked in that building for 5-6 years, worked with Les for 9 years. And so I feel comfortable with the information I got out of there and the player that we were bringing in.
Just now, but from your understanding, what was the situation with it?
Well, not to violate HIPAA laws and talk about, his medical. But again, their head trainer, Reggie Scott, was trained under Todd Torricelli when he first came into the league. Their director of rehab, Byron Cunningham, was one of my closest friends. So in terms of getting the medical and understanding where the knee was, we were fully comfortable and knowledgeable of what it was and, and what we need to do for him to keep him going.
Trading Malik in terms of making that move, was that just a product that there wasn't going to be room for 3 guys on the 53-man roster, or that you weren't going to be able to slip him through waivers and get into the practice?
No, I don't think it's either of those. I think Malik earned the opportunity to have a chance to be the backup, whether it was here or somewhere else. And, he fought his ass off while he was here and done everything that we asked him to do. And I think everybody in this room and beyond this room saw the improvement, that he made, which is a testament to the young man, but also, to our coaching staff and Bo Hardegree and the work that he put in with him. But when it came down to it, Mason had a better offseason and a better preseason and helped move our offense down the field. And, when it ultimately came down to it, we talk about, taking care of people, and doing what's right for our guys. And, when Green Bay called and we knew that Malik had an opportunity to be the backup, which we feel he deserved, it wasn't necessarily about the compensation. It was just doing right by Malik and giving him that opportunity.
What went into the decision to waive Vanette and Weaver?
Procedurally, and I think it'll be coming out here soon. We claim 2 guys at the cut down, and obviously you get an hour to make those moves. We'd like to get both of those guys back, but it was a procedural thing for us to be in compliance with the 53-man roster.
Is Ali Gay, for both of you, Brian, if you could chime in, is he a defensive lineman for you or an edge?
He will be an edge, but he's a guy that's versatile. He can put his hand in the dirt. He can stand up. He's long. He's athletic. He's rangy, and he can, do both of those things, in my opinion. Coach, you want to?
Yeah, he can play both spots. I mean, he can rush on the edge, and outside linebackers and sub are just defensive ends. So it's the same position, and you're just standing up on the ball in base defense. So, he fits a prototype of what we're looking for that spot.
Certain guys that you wanted to maybe surprise with news that they'd made the team, and if so, what were those? What was that like informing those players?
I guess you guys will have to see.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, no, those were the we did those at the end of the day. We picked a few guys to tell that that they had made the 53, and that helps bring you out of the fog of and the downness of telling all those other guys they didn't. So it was a good pick me up at the end of the day. It was a long day, but it was fun to see those guys' reactions to knowing that they had fulfilled the dream of theirs and making an NFL football team.
Went into the running backs, picking Julius over Hassan.
Yeah, Julius performed better than Hassan over the course of the preseason and in practice. Hassan did a good job, but Julius was just better at every opportunity that he had. And so Hassan still did a nice job on special teams, but ultimately probably wasn't enough for him to take that third spot from Julius, and Julius earned it. And he was really productive over the course of the preseason, and he's been really good in the practice sessions as well. So feel really good about Julius as our third back. And
sticking with four corners, do you feel like you need a fifth or sixth, or is this four kind of where you're comfortable at?
Well, I think you're always looking for the next, whatever the fifth guy might be in that room, but we've also got guys in the practice squad you can elevate. That's an easy. They each get 2 elevations apiece, and usually that fifth corner is your special teams player anyway. And so those are roster mechanics that we work through. But as of right now, with the practice squad guys and the guys in the roster, feel pretty good where that spot's at, and we can always add more if one were to be available.
Defensive line depth.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, we still got a couple guys in the practice squad that can fit that role. You're still only going to carry probably 5 on game day anyway. So, it is what it is. I mean, obviously losing Marlon, we would like to have Marlon. That would have helped as for depth purposes and rotational purposes, but we feel pretty good about where we're at. And again, always looking to continue to add guys, especially up front.
How are you looking at things? This is just the first iteration of the 53. It's not going to be final and concrete and set. I don't think there's probably ever been any team that was set today that made it all the way through January, anyway. But this is just the first iteration. We still got another waiver wire to come out here in a little bit of guys coming available, and we wanted to maintain a fluid, position where we can make moves and not have to continue to make tough choices and get rid of people. We wanted to have the flexibility to continue to bring people in here.
Right now, as you look at the punt return situation, you got Jaquan, but how do things look after him?
You only need one for the punt return.
You always want to have a reserve, right?
Sure. We got guys that can catch the ball. Tyler Boyd's returned punts before. Obviously you could elevate Mason Kinsey if you had to. He's returned punts. So we got one, which is where you need to start. And then after that, if you've needed another one, you'd have to figure it out. But we got guys in the roster that have done it and guys in the practice squad that have done it. So feel pretty comfortable.
What factored into the decision to move on from Elijah Molden?
I mean, that's to be announced. I know what the reports are out there, and we'll talk about that at another time.
That you guys with keeping Jalen Duncan and John Ajuku, do you think just the development you could see out of these guys with a guy like Bill as the coach is part of the process too of keeping guys like that?
Yeah, I would say so. JD's done a good job. He's continued to develop. He started a ton of games for us last year at left tackle, which gave him great experience. He's also finished a couple games for us at right, and so he's getting that experience over there. And I think OJ, I joked with him yesterday. I think he was the first person to ever teach my daughter what reporting eligible meant. I've never seen somebody take so much pride in reporting eligible when that was his role, last year. But he's another guy that came on and earned it. You know what I mean? And so, and then let's be frank, let's be honest. This time of year, nobody's letting go of, good quality tackles. But we've invested in these guys. So it's, we have to see this investment through and allow these guys to get the experience.
About those 2 waiver pickups, I guess, who come in with the guys you added today.
Yeah, I think the guys that we're adding, starting with Ali, he's a long, rangy guy. You've seen him develop over the years. And he brings us that versatility, a guy that can stand up, put his hand in the dirt, a line across the front, whether it's in sub or in base. And then with Julius is, he's a tough, hard-nosed kid. Got a text from Bones Fossil. He basically was like, damn you, that's a good pickup, one of his core guys. And there's not a special teams coach in this league I respect more than Bones, and how he sees special teams guys. So, and he was a guy that our scouts, put a lot of work into and, identified him and, we're excited to get. So it's
those guys that earned it, and what was it like to maybe reward him with the news that he made it?
Again, you guys will get to see that. And I'm excited about you getting to see it. But, a guy like Thomas O, he's never not here. in the building. This offseason, he was here just as much as people who worked in the building, and just the way he works and just kind of how he goes about his business. But for a guy to be an international practice squad guy, to now earn his chance on a 53, that's what this league is about. That's what that program was about, being able to have international guys that you work with for a couple years and develop them, and for them to have this opportunity.
Indicated he was full today. What's the plan for him from now through next week and going into Chicago?
He's practicing, so he's ready to roll. He should be a full participant with no limitations at every practice from now until we play. So that's part of the plan, was to get him to this point. That's why you didn't see him a ton in training camp, and he got most of his work in the walkthrough sessions and jog through sessions that you guys weren't at. But yeah, he should be ready to roll.
What was he?
Same. He was not a full participant today, but he should be full by next week.
You talked about how difficult the decision-making process would be. How do you feel like you navigated all of that as the head coach to arrive at, I guess, your first version of the 53?
Yeah, it was. Thankfully, I have a lot of help. That's the cool part, is Rand and his staff and our coaching staff and the people that evaluate these players and pour into these players. And you have opinions about what we need and where we need to go. And that part was really, really smooth. I think everything about how we went through our process from the time that I've gotten here until now has been collaborative, and it was no different in this process. And so Rand and I delivered the news together to all the players, which I thought was the right thing to do, and that worked out really well, both positive and negative news. And yeah, didn't feel any different than anything else has felt since I've gotten here. So that part, I think, is really positive, and I enjoy that part, because we got a lot of people that are good at their jobs, and we let them do it.
Last year, you talked about leaning on the previous head coach, and now this year, the new head coach is leaning on you. How has that process been? What's that been like?
I'm the young OG in her room. No, like you said, it was collaborative. We had a ton of conversations, even down to as the waiver wire came out last night. We spent the week leading up to the New Orleans game. The staff just locked in the room for 8 hours, just grinding tape, until you really couldn't watch anymore. So we felt good about the preparation put in, to that point. And so when the waiver wire came back, we went another spin on the tape to make sure we were good. And, just having a constant communication with the coaches. If we like the guy, hey, make sure you guys watch. And our staff, led by Anthony Robinson and AJ Highsmith, they did a really good job of communicating with the coaches, making the coaches' job easier, creating point of attack tapes of the players that we were considering, to make their job easier to evaluate these guys. And, whether it was Nick Holtz or, Colt Anderson or Denard, we were in constant communication with them, watching guys and getting their feedback as we were trying to make these decisions.
Roster has developed over the last year. The decisions were tougher this year compared to last year as far as some of the last spots.
Oh yeah, I mean, even to the last couple of decisions we've had to make before we went to practice today. We were in full transparency, we were up until about 5 or 10 minutes left. Before we had to submit our the guys that we were flipping out, for the roster claims. And so it was tough decisions, all the way around, and not just tough decisions, because of numbers or whatnot, but we've developed relationships with these guys, over myself over the last 2 seasons, and, Brian, since he's been here in January. So you develop relationships with these guys. You genuinely care about these guys, and, we're the ones that deliver the news. So to answer the question, yes, it was tough decisions, but when it all came down to it, every guy that we spoke to understood what we were trying to do. Whether we chose to bring them back on the practice squad or not, they understood the vision, and they were appreciative of their opportunity.
Any claims for anybody that
at the tight end position?
One more time.
When you guys made up the tight end room and then released Nick, any concerns about experience there, or do you feel like the talent that you have kind of?
No, we'll be getting Nick back. Nick Vanette will be back with us. So again, like we said earlier, that was more of a procedural, move to be in compliance with the 53. But we will be signing Nick Vanette back.
Back on the 53?
Yes.
So then you'll have to make a procedural move, cutting somebody up.
Will not. We will be able to sign Nick Vanette back to the 53 without making any procedural moves.
Would there be any consideration of putting Cedric Gray on IR to start the season, or is that something you see him working through in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I get to break news. According to sources, we will be placing Cedric Gray on IR, designated for return, just to give him an opportunity to, get healthy. Had the conversation with Cedric this morning. He's one of those guys that you got to protect him from himself, because he wants to prove that, he wants to be on this team and he's earned the right to be on this team. And so with the nature of his injury, we just got to protect him from himself and give him, an even longer period to get back healthy for us.
The injuries at that position, how much did that play into the decision to trade for Ernest?
No, I mean, it's you talk about sometimes just being lucky and things falling in your lap, and that was just one of those situations. I think, if you go back to the very beginning, we were excited about Wallow, and where he was going, and then, he gets hurt, and obviously everyone's seen, how Chance has developed, and, then his injury happens, and so it's just one of those things that just fell in your lap, the opportunity to add a guy that's played a ton of ball, that's played at a Pro Bowl, level, that's played in a lot of big games, and it was an opportunity for us to add him, and so we took that chance.
Add an established veteran like that to a room. Do you feel the need to have a conversation with the guys that it might impact playing time or role within the team? And I guess what do those conversations look like for either one of you?
Yeah, that was the first thing we did, before, we agreed to terms with the Rams, and our next phone call was to Gibby, and just let him know, like, hey, continue to do what you do. For Ernest has to come in and earn the spot. He hadn't been here, so it's up for those two to figure it out. But we're going to always be, communicative with these guys and let them know from the very start. Even when we signed, Quandre Diggs, that was a conversation with Hook. That was a conversation with Elijah, about, what was coming. And so we never want these guys to be blindsided or surprised by anything. And if they have any thoughts, concerns, comments, critiques, they can always come to me and Callie, and we'll be transparent with them.
Did you put in any claims for anybody that was also claimed by a team higher in the pecking order?
No.
If you please, Chad said it way back at the owners' meetings that when we were talking about the definition of success this year, that it was broadly based on how fast so much change gelled. And you've had probably more change since then than any of you expected in terms of veteran additions. How much do you think that is the key to this year, and how many different directions can that go?
Yeah, anytime you're adding new players, new faces, new people, you're looking at change, and you're looking at get relationships that you have to build. And I feel really good about the ones we've built so far, and then we'll add in the guys that we've added in, and keep pushing forward. That's sort of the name of the game. And I think we got the right people, which I think is what makes the biggest difference. Is we got really good people on the roster, on our coaching staff, on our team, and people that I think are really good at building relationships. And so, yeah, it's always a part of it. I'm not going to gloss over it and say that, everyone just comes in and on the same page at every second, every moment. It takes work. And the guys that have been here have worked at it, and we'll continue to work with the guys that we add. So it'll always be in progress, I think, as every year you add more players and new players come in and old players leave. And that's just sort of the nature of the NFL. And so that's why every year I think is a new team. And whether you, even when you have returning players coming back each year, your team is different. There's different pieces, different people around a team, and you have to keep finding out what your team is for that season. And that's what our job is. And that process is ongoing.
To add to that, I would say, it's a testament to the leaders that we have on this team. Guys like Jeff, who is, obviously he's always been a leader here, but to see where he's grown as a leader and doing things to get in the defense, guys spending time together, you see that a lot, and you kind of see that within the relationships as guys flow throughout the building. And the same thing with Will, with the offense, and those guys spend a lot of time together. So like Brian said, we have a lot of people here who value relationships, not just from our side of the building, but in the locker room. And all those guys have continued to work within each other. And I had a conversation with Jeff last week, and he was just telling me that, he feels really strongly about the locker room and and how the guys are amongst each other. And I mean, they are a cool group to be around. I mean, Calvin, and you see this out at practice every day, after practice, you see Calvin and T Boyd, out running sprints together. Those guys never played together before, but they've created that relationship, that bond, within each other, as well as other position groups. You see, Tajay and Tony, how they're joined at the hip, at every turn. And so that's pretty consistent across our roster.
What will success be defined as this year? Is it winning record? I mean, that's the bottom line in this league, or is there something else that has to happen?
You're looking to build a foundation too, something that is going to be enduring, sustainable for the foreseeable future on top of that. So there's a lot of work in building the culture of the building between the coaches and players, our coaches and our front office staff, our coaching staff, our front office staff, and the rest of the building. So that's part of an ongoing process for us. And I think that what I'm looking for is to continue that, building a foundation. And then you hope that that's what propels you. I mean, we have talented players, we have talented coaches. I feel good about our team's ability to be competitive in these games that we have to play. And we'll see how it shakes out.
That was in the concussion protocol out now, or anybody still in there?
No, everybody practiced today. So the only guys that didn't practice was D-Hop and there might have been one or two others, but Jamal didn't practice, and that was it. Everybody else was at practice. So we're
Jamal have some or just
Jamal right now, just normal veteran stuff that we're managing. So nothing at this point that I need to comment on, but we'll see next week too.
Looking for a practice squad quarterback, you want somebody that's already familiar with systems similar to yours, or you want a young guy to try to develop?
No, I think in a perfect world, you find a younger player, a guy in his first or second year that you can develop and pour into and see if you can, build your own in a sense. But that doesn't put us in a box. We're going to try to find the best quarterback that we can find out there. And if there's not one immediately, we're not going to just sign one to sign one either. So I think we'll be patient and we'll find the right fit for us. But yeah, I would enjoy having another young quarterback in there to develop and work with. But we'll see.
So Brian, made a different feel maybe now that you're down to 53 and you got a game coming up in 10, 11 days, or is that next week when you start getting into game week mode?
Say the first part of that question.
Is there a different feel maybe around the team, maybe at practice or in the building, you think, now as you have eyes towards Chicago?
Yeah, I think you start to feel this. I think these guys are looking forward to their break. To be honest, I think they need. We're trying to get them back this week. Practices obviously aren't as intense. I went inside today because it was so hot, so I didn't want to put them out there in the sun and dehydrate guys and all that. So, we have our eye towards the opener, and I think that's where we're at now. But these guys will take a couple days this weekend and refresh and come back. And usually it's Monday when you really feel it. And there's a whole new energy and intensity to the building and to the players because they know what's coming. It's time to go. There is no more training camp. There's no more OTAs. It's football time. And so you feel that from the team, but you don't feel it quite yet. They're measured in their approach.
5 tight ends with Vanette coming back. Is that an intentional roster design element of the way that you're wanting to run your offense? Or is that just a nature of, like you were talking about last week, where we wanted to get the best football players regardless of position?
Yeah, it's more the latter if you're trying to put them in a bucket. Because I think that we felt like between DMR and Thomas that we had two guys that fit two different positions in the tight end room, both equally well. And it's hard to find tight ends. They're not the good ones are generally difficult to find. And we've gotten two guys that Thomas has been, poured into over 3 years now. And so you'd hate to put Thomas on waivers and now he's somebody else's gain for all the work you put into the player. And then DMR was, again, young, athletic, talented, that those guys usually don't make it through waivers. Not to say they would or would not have, we'll never know. But that was by design, as we wanted to keep our young players that we think at a position that it's hard to develop and it takes time to develop at, to make sure we had young guys in the room that we felt really good about.
You guys went young at the tight end position at the bottom and the offensive line position, going with guys instead of some older guys that people thought had a chance to make the roster. Is that an element of wanting to get guys with more upside? Does where you're at in a team building standpoint play into that kind of decision?
Yeah, I think everything plays into those decisions. Those are never singular decisions. There's always elements of all those things that get discussed. But I think for the offensive line guys, those are the guys that perform the best in the preseason games and in the practice. I mean, those guys, JD performed really well, and he's sort of steadily risen over the entire process of training camp. And Jo had some up and down moments, but really has finished on a really high note. I thought he played really well in the game, and his practices the last week and a half have been on the rise. And so those guys earn that. Obviously, we brought Leroy back on the practice squad, so we have another tackle there that's available to us. But those guys earned it, I think is the best way to put it, and they played the best. And so we don't really care as much about years of service or anything like that. Our best players are going to make our roster.
Denard had mentioned he called Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams the pit bull and iron fist. I know, you've talked in the past about leadership. Those guys with those nicknames, like how have they come in and set the tone and serve that leadership that you were looking for?
I would say initially, because both of those guys have been captains where they came from. And so now you come into a building, into a room where, Hook has been the elder statesman, there. So I think they came in cognizant of, Hook's tenure here and just kind of saw where they fit in. But, when you got personalities like Quandre, and like Jamal, people just naturally gravitate to him. And everyone in that room is just playing off of each other. Jamal is probably a little more boisterous, or probably the most boisterous one, in that room. Whereas Hook and Quandre is one of those, I'll speak when spoken to type people, but when he speaks, people listen, and Hook is kind of the leader by example, in that room. So we got a good mixture of leadership, and I think all those guys play off each other.
Was it to kind of package those guys together and bring them in?
Say that one more time.
I said, how intentional was it to package those guys together and bring them in, the way that you did?
Yeah, I mean, it was the thought process of, spending time with Denard and understanding what he wanted to do. I mean, you look at what they did in Baltimore last year. They consistently, I'd probably say 60% of the snaps played with three safeties on the field. And so to give him that same option here, to be able to have versatile chess pieces for him to create his packages with, we thought that would be good for us and allow us to put the best 11 on the field.
This cap situation, might that tempt you to make one more big move if something nice presents itself, or will you lean towards fiscal responsibility that helps you next year and keeps you in good standing?
Yeah. No, I mean, we're going to always be fiscally responsible. I think if you look at last year, this time of year, and probably throughout most of the part of the year, we were in the top 5 in cap space throughout the year. And I mean, you have to leave yourself some operating costs, just for injuries, signing guys, if you have to place guys on IR. So we're going to be responsible there. If opportunity presents itself, that's too good for us to pass up, we're definitely going to look at it. Definitely not opposed to doing that and making this team better. But just to go out and just spend money to spend it, we're never going to do that.
Okay, Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan at But they did say a couple things. We'll get to that. Get your reaction in as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. First, though, I want to tell you about Window Nation. I love Window Nation. And with it being as smoking hot outside as it is, you heard the coach. He said he had to go inside. It's so hot outside. Cooling your home is more expensive than ever. Trust me, I know. Old, inefficient windows are costing you hundreds of dollars a year in energy bills. And to let Window Nation take great care of that. And Window Nation has some of the most, if not the most, period, energy efficient windows you can buy. So get with Window Nation today, where they've got their experts. And if you buy 2 windows, you'll get 2 windows free. For every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 free, plus a $250 savings. And you don't pay anything for 24 months. Again, for every 2 windows you buy, you'll get 2 free, and you do not pay anything for 24 months, plus a $250 credit. It's very, very easy. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION and windownation.com. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We just heard from Carthon and Callahan, the Titans brass, as they met with the media. And as I said, I'm not trying to be rude when I say this. I'm just trying to keep it real. I think they talked a lot, and I think they said, again, I mean this with all due respect, I think they said very little. That's just me. They did say that even though Nick Vannett has been released today, they will be bringing Nick Vannett back. So it looks like the Titans are going to roll with the 5 tight ends. They talked about that they're not worried about Ernest Jones' knee. You know, there had been talk about the Ernest Jones knee. They said they weren't worried about that because their head trainer was trained under Todd Torricelli, the Titans trainer. The great Todd Torricelli, who you may not at all just wonder aloud if he could be a part of the problem with all the injuries over the last couple of years. It is absolutely banned by Joe Rexrode and banned by Paul Kaharski. You are not allowed to do it, period. Even though, I mean, trainer would be a place that I would think about if we were having chronic injury issues, but that's just me. But anywho, apparently they said that they're not concerned with the price tag being so low. They're not concerned with the knee. They said they traded Malik because Malik earned the opportunity to be the backup in Green Bay, which I actually think is true. I think it's probably more based upon the agent, David Mulligetta, who's a very powerful agent in the NFL, saying, hey, Green Bay wants him to back up. Can you make it happen for me? And the Titans saying, well, it's probably better to scratch the back right here than it is to have him as that third string guy. They would not confirm nor deny the reports that Elijah Molden has been traded, which, by the way, the spot track guy, you know, the guy who every now and then, like once a year, will tweet out that the salary cap's real. And then people will be like, see, this guy says the cap's real, Jared. And I'm like, yes, the guy who runs the cap website who's saying, yeah, the cap's not really real, but it's kind of real. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, of course. But apparently, Ernest Jones' salary for this season is $3.1 million. Guess what Elijah Molden's salary is this year?
3.1.
$3.1 million. I saw that and I thought, ha, Amy. Oh my God. It's great. Balling on a budget. They're saying Brian Callahan was asked about his comfort level with only having 4 corners on the roster. And he basically said what I've said this whole time when it came to cutting some of these guys, where I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter if you cut both Haskins and Chestnut because one of the two is going to get to the practice squad and then you use the one. They're looking at it like, yeah, on game day, we'll call up Avery or Judy Lolly. And then if we got to make a decision, then we'll make a decision. That's what I think. That's my gut is what they've decided on. They really glazed the donuts of Jalen Duncan and John Ojukwu, which I actually do have to object to. You know, when they say speak now or forever hold your peace, let me object to all the, again, sunshine pumping with those 2 tackles. I think both guys are terrible. I mean, and I really mean that. And I mean it with all due respect, but I think they're both awful. And I'm listening to them talk about, you know, Ojukwu had a really up and down camp, but boy, he really came on there at the end. And Jalen Duncan, he really earned it. And he really showed you. And I'm like, let's flip that around and let's ask the rest of the room. Because those guys in there, they cover practice every day. And this is training camp practice where they're allowed to watch. They're not allowed to watch practice anymore. But they've seen all the preseason games and they've seen all the practices. And if you got up at the podium and you said, do you show of hands, who thinks Jalen Duncan was good in training camp? I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I have a hard time believing you'd see a lot of hands go up in the air. And you definitely wouldn't see any hands go up in the air if they asked about Ojukwu. But they're trying to tell you that they feel good about those guys, when in reality, those guys stink. If they have an injury at tackle, they are screwed because they're going to put Duncan out there. And it's going to be a disaster. I mean, it's going to be a complete and total nightmare if that's something they do. But again, this is their press conference, not mine. That's what they said, kind of pumping that up. Cedric Gray will be placed on IR, designated to return. I've never seen Cedric Gray take a snap, so I don't have any opinion on that. They were asked about the definition of success, and I'm not sure I really got anything out of that for whatever that's like. DeAndre Hopkins didn't practice today, and Jamal Adams didn't practice today. Jamal Adams needed a veteran day off. He worked so hard in the Saints game, Ian, they had to give Jamal Adams the day off. And then apparently L'Jarius Sneed is good to go. And according to them, Chidobe Awuzie will be good to go as well. Also, Rand did brag about being top 5 in cap space last year. Didn't help them win any games, but they were top 5 in cap space for all of you people last year that when we were stuck with Andre Dillard and having to watch him play said, it's John Robinson's fault for the cap. Even though the cap's fake, they were excited, I guess, about the fact that they were top 5 last year in cap space. Do you think you get a trophy for that?
Sure.
Top 5 in cap space for 2023. So make of that what you will. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025. Your phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And so we will get to your phones because a lot of you do want to weigh in. We will get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
What will success be defined as this year? Is it winning record? I mean, that's the bottom line in this league, or is there something else that has to happen?
You're looking to build a foundation too. You know, something that is going to be enduring, sustainable for the foreseeable future on top of that. So there's a lot of work in building the culture of the building between the coaches and players, our coaches and our front office staff, our coaching staff, our front office staff, and the rest of the building. So that's part of an ongoing process for us. And I think that what I'm looking for is to continue that building a foundation. And then you hope that that's what propels you. I mean, we have talented players, we have talented coaches. I feel good about our team's ability to be competitive in these games that we have to play. And we'll see how it shakes out.
That was Brian Callahan. Wait, let me just say this. Way to go, Teresa. Like, Teresa, you're the real MVP today, because Paul asked this weird ass question about Chad Brinker said at the owners' meetings that success would be defined by. Do we have the Paul question? We don't even need to hear the word salad that the Titans put behind it. But the Titans had like 3 minutes of word salad after this Paul question. But this question's kind of my problem to begin with. Go ahead and play that.
If you please. Chad said it way back at the owners' meetings that when we were talking about the definition of success this year, that it was broadly based on how fast so much change gelled. And you've had probably more change since then than any of you expected in terms of veteran additions. How much do you think that is the key to this year, and how many different directions can that go?
Okay. So, like, I'm not saying Paul's wrong for the question. What I'm saying is, what?
Got to gel.
So Chad said at the owners' meeting that success would be defined by how fast they all gel. Question for everybody. Who gives a rat's ass how fast they gel?
The O-line, I do care.
Who cares about whether or not they beat Chicago in 11 days?
I care about both.
I see a lot more hands going up about Chicago in 11 days.
Secondary needs to gel. No one practices.
Well, how are they going to do it? How is the secondary gel? You know what?
How quickly can they gel will be the key.
These guys go to the lunchroom and they sit down together, and one of them has a snack pack and the other has a Jell-O.
I'll trade
And
you
what
for your
we're
snack
trying
pack.
to do is we're trying to see if we can get two guys to both go with a snack pack. Just the bull crappery that this Titans regime has about everything's got to be bull crap. Everything. It's like Chad sits down with Paul at the owners' meetings, and just like his booth interview, just like his podcast interview, just says a bunch of crap that doesn't mean anything. And it's like, huh. Oh, gosh. I love it. All right, phones. 615-737-1025. Your phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Somebody says HIPAA laws. Rand referenced HIPAA laws when it came to the Ernest Jones knee injury. They talk about players' injuries publicly all the time, avoiding a legitimate question and using HIPAA to get out of it. This person was very upset. The second person in the text line with the press conference was very upset. All caps. OJ and Duncan are not good quality tackles. Now, I wasn't transcribing the entire press conference verbatim. I did tell you, even in the last segment, I felt like they glazed the donuts a little too heavily for my liking. Did he say they were good quality tackles?
I don't remember that specifically.
I don't know if he said they were good quality tackles or not. I know they inferred that they were good quality tackles. That I do know. Here's what I will say about that. On one hand, we do have to allow for a little lying, maybe not as much lying and dishonesty as we've seen in the past, but they have to do a little something. I mean, they can't come out and say these guys suck and we know we're screwed if they have to play. But they could say something like, hey, you know, those guys, big part of the team. They could say something and then say, but we're always looking to improve. You know, they could give you the subtle hint that, yeah, this, if we have to go this route, we couldn't. Or they could do what Vrabel did one time when Kendall Lamb and Dylan Radins were stinking it up. And Vrabel was like, well, Sam Brylow is going to come back at some point. And if they had a plan outside of using Duncan or Ojukwu at tackle, they could have said something like, well, and don't forget, hey, Brunskill played some tackle in San Francisco and Dylan's played some tackle. And so we feel like we've got options when it comes to tackle that if we needed to use, we could use. So they could say that. Somebody texts in and says, I can see why Vrabel didn't want to work with this guy. He's not very good at conveying information. Ran's a lot of word salad, a lot of bogus reasons for doing things the way he does it. I didn't feel that way from this press conference. I thought that for the most part, he answered the questions. And even when he didn't want to talk about it, like the Molden thing, he didn't lie about it. He just said, that's not official and we'll, talk about it later when it is. Now, that does mean when you say something like that, there will be plenty of time to discuss it, which Rand said, then you have to do another press conference. Rand cannot go away like he did last year and not talk about things if he's going to get up there today and he's going to say there will be plenty of time to talk about. Josh from White House says, am I disconnected or missing something? Or does it seem like the Titans are just spewing a bunch of BS? If I'm wrong, tell me. Let me say this.
They all spew a little BS.
That is part of the equation, no doubt. But of the BS spewing that the Titans have done over the last 12 months, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the ball didn't bounce our way press conference, that press conference was like a 3. I really didn't think it was that egregious. Now, it should be noted, it's much easier to not have a BS spewing press conference when you're 0-0. It's much harder the day after a 6-11 season, which might be why. But if we want to sit here and we want to talk about the Titans, they just don't say anything. It's all bull crap. I do agree with that sentiment, especially anything that comes out of Chad Brinker's mouth. I really have a hard time with when he uses big words and talks for a while. And then I'm like, so how did going to, what was his business school called?
Some AI cancer curing model from.
No. But what was the school called? It's not Keurig, but it sounds like Keurig, I think.
I'm not sure.
Koenig?
No.
Keurig?
Did he say it in that clip?
Folgers?
That's just coffee.
Yeah, Kellogg. That's it. Kellogg. That's it. Kellogg. Like the cereal. So Brinker was like, I went to Kellogg. And right there, we had some of the smartest people in the world. Now, I was just lucky to be in the class. We had some of the smartest people in the world there. And they were doing all kinds of things with AI. And what they were doing is they were taking algorithms and they were using it to be able to determine cancer into certain patients. And I was so impressed by what I saw that I thought, okay, what can we do to bring this to football? Because if we can bring this to football and save some money with owners, then, that's going to go a big way towards us being successful. And everybody on the podcast with Brinker was like, wow. And I'm like, so what does this AI cancer curing determining model at Kellogg at curing, what does that have to do with winning football games? And if you can understand, if you can explain that to me, then I'll be on board with it. But everybody else is just like, wow. Or they're like, congratulations on your big promotion. What do you do? Well, I'm very fortunate to be in this position of this new job that I have where I'm really just able to help Rand with what he needs and help Brian Callahan with what he needs and really build, working together, a great football team. And, we really work together at all these different things and, allowing us to be the best we can be, to do the best we can do. Isn't that what you did last year? Isn't that so how's that a promotion? So again, just to, the converse of that was I didn't think this press conference was that. I will be critical when it's time to be critical, but I didn't think right now it's time to be critical. Will's mad at Rand Carthon, constantly using confusing nicknames for every single player as if we know who he is talking about is strange and seems to be an overcompensation to show a bond with the players. Do you buy that?
No, I don't.
So I go out of my way 99.9% of the time. Hockey is very big on the whole nickname thing.
Right.
And I have gone out of my way 99.9% of the time to avoid using nicknames like the hockey nicknames. And I will tell you why. Because I'm not friends with the players, and I don't want to be friends with the players. Now, the one exception that I do have is I will call Andrew Burnett Bruno sometimes just because it's easier to say.
And everybody kind of calls him that.
Yeah, but like with Laviolette, I mean, I never called him Lavi. I was always like, and then Peter said, and whatever.
What about, you going to go with Callie?
No!
For Brian Callahan?
God, no. God, it makes my skin crawl when I hear somebody who's not with the team say that. It's like, oh, God, Callie. Ugh. Ugh. I will never say that. I'm not friends with the players. And let me say this, like, again, I don't think I have like a great relationship with Brian Callahan, but like I would say that he and I have a friendly relationship, and I'm still not going to call him Callie. Like I'm never going to do that. That's weird. Dude's a coach, Brian. That's his name. So I never do that, but at the same time, like I don't have a problem. Like Barry Trotz comes on the show and does that all the time. Askey and Tomer, and sometimes he says things I'm like, who the hell are you talking about?
Yos, Juice.
I don't know. During a Barry Trotz interview, I didn't know that Ryan O'Reilly's nickname, because what they always do is they try to take like your name and then put an E or an R or whatever.
They went a little bit different with O'Reilly. Factor.
Yeah. So like Crispy will come on the show and he'll call me Stiller all the time, which is like, again, that's like the hockey thing or whatever.
Yeah, they call you Stilly on the morning show.
Same thing.
Yep.
And so Ryan O'Reilly's nickname is Factor. And the first time I heard Barry Trotz say that during an interview, because I watch Fox News. So the first time I heard that, I laughed out loud, like on the air. And like, you wouldn't know why, but it was because I had never heard that before. And I'm like, Factor? Like the O'Reilly factor? Got it. Okay. 615-737-1025 is the when something's not really that funny, but you see it, it hits you, and it's just like, somebody texting the text line said, what about PT?
That would be funny if Carthon started calling him PT.
If they started calling him PT, I'd die.
That would be pretty good.
I would die if they start calling him PT. What was the one Chris had earlier today?
Otis.
Chris was talking about inside linebacker. And Chris was like, I really like what they got, because they got Kenneth Murray and Ernest Jones and Jack Gibbons and Otis. And this, I'm like, who? He was like, am I saying that right? Otis, O-T-I. I was like, Otis Reese. Somebody said that I call Mike Vrabel Vrabes. When did I call Vrabel Vrabes?
I've never heard that.
I have never called Mike Vrabel Vrabes ever. And I like Vrabel. I don't think he likes me, but I like him. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025. I do have a topic about Ernest Jones that I want to get to. You got a lot of phones on this, so we'll go to your phones next. Unless anybody has an objection, 615-737-1025 here on Stillman & Company. Let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app, and you have heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook app. Well, FanDuel has something a little different for you, because right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/JGM. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. Full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after a free trial, no refunds. Terms and restrictions and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Yeah, I look at my position as a position of ultimate service. I'm here to service our head coach, our general manager, and every single department head. You know, we're about creating leaders within our organization, empowering people to do their jobs. And my job is to help lift them up, give them the tools that they need to succeed in their roles. And I really look at it that way. That's what true leadership is service to others.
So if you heard me do the FanDuel read at the end of the last segment and I was kind of giggling a little bit, and I mean, I never do that, you know, when I'm doing a read, like this is serious stuff here to tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook, but I was kind of giggling because I was thinking about what cut to play coming in to take your phones. And I was like, it has to be the one where Chad Brinker says, my job is to service the head coach. Speaking of Brinker, I promised more of your phones. Texture says, it was really funny to listen to Chad Brinker talk about his cancer model. Oh, excuse me. It was really funny to listen to Chad Brinker talk about his cancer curing model for Sadiq Charles to quit 3 months later. I mean, that's the one thing that I find incredibly disingenuous about these press conferences, especially when it comes to the right side of the offensive line. You know, Corey, God bless him. He's calling a game on the Titans network. And when you're calling the game on the Titans network, it is different than, you know, if you're just calling the game on the Corey Curtis network. It's just, it is what it is. And I'm not saying that Corey doesn't think this, but he said it on the broadcast when he was like, the right side of the line, guys, was something that the Titans wanted to hope that they could handle this year, hope that they could put together. But now it's starting to be something they feel good about. Guys, back to you. And I'm like, feel good about it. And then when I'm listening to him being like, well, hey, the guys that are out there, the guys who played the best, and we this and we that, and let's just call it what it is. Radens is in that spot because Sadiq Charles quit, and PT's in that spot because the other two guys stink. Now, let us all lock arms and let us pray and say amen. One texter said, he said that this time of the year, people do not let go of good quality tackles. I don't know who said it, if they're referring to Carthon or Callahan, saying that people don't let go of good quality tackles this time of year. Yes. And whenever they said that, Ian, I want to cut that, you know, and I want us to remember that. I want it to be tattooed on everybody's brain so that next March, when I'm bitching about the same thing about they don't have a left tackle, they don't have a right tackle, they don't have a swing tackle, they don't have and you're like, Jared, chill out. It's March, it's April, it's May, right? Because that is when you do those kind of things. That's when you solve those problems. And I go back to right tackle right now. I was having a conversation with somebody today, and they told me, they said, look, the Titans are very hopeful that Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
The Titans are very hopeful that PT can be the answer at right tackle. That they felt like they saw some improvement out of PT on the practice field and in the games, that it gives them a little bit of hope, and that apparently the sentiment the Titans have is, man, if this guy had been available for the entire offseason around Bill Callahan, then they would feel great about it because that they think they've got some moldable clay. And I will tell you this. So did Ryan Day. So did Mike Vrabel. So did everybody. And you want to know what is consistent with PT's performance after somebody has believed in him? It's blown up in their face. I don't know if you guys remember the Ohio State-Michigan game in 2021 when Aiden Hutchinson had about 13 sacks. Guess who it was against? And I don't know if you remember his rookie year when he wasn't very good, and last year when they were betting on him and then he got suspended for the gambling and then they put him in and then he was terrible and then he got hurt and and now you're out there with Dillard and Duncan and Bozo and everybody else. So I want this texter that said, he said, I don't know if it's Carthon or if it's Callahan, probably Callahan. He said, this time of the year, people don't let go of good quality tackles. Remember that. Because you're not going to be able to get tackles in August of next year when you need them. Those are March problems. Those are April problems. And that's why in March and April, I talked about it every single day. because it was a problem. It can't get solved now. Either PT is the guy or he's not. And if PT is not the guy, I will cry about it every single day. And you guys will be right there with me. The same guys that said in April, calm down, Jared, it's okay. It's only April. It's only May. You people will be right there with me week 3 saying, oh my God, well, what are we going to do, Jared? And I'm like, there's nothing to do. Just like last year, there was nothing to do except for put Duncan in for Dillard and then put Dillard back in for Duncan. I do laugh when Rand was talking about Duncan. And he was like, well, I mean, he played some games for us last year and finished some games for us and started some games for us and was inactive week 17 against the Jags. Because at that point, they didn't need to see any more from Duncan. They were good with Dillard and Radence. That should tell you all you need to know. One texter said, Rand did his signature. Oh, I got a text from another GM thing. But in this case, here's where I'm going to actually let this one slide. He said who it was. He said it was Bones Fossil. And so Bones Fossil was the special teams coach and I believe interim head coach when Rand was in LA. So obviously they were together. And he said that when they took the guy, that Bones Fossil's the one who texted him. And let me tell you, he can't make that up because if John Fossil was his dad, wasn't it? It's Jim Fossil. No, Jim was his dad. John is Bones. If John Fossil didn't text him, then he would come out and say, I didn't text him. So he must have texted him. So I'm going to let this one slide. Now, if it was an unnamed coach, then we'd have a problem. But this one was not I'm going to let that one slide. And I feel okay with that. For whatever that's worth. One texter says, Chad Brinker sounds like an overpaid executive assistant. What do you mean, like a secretary? That is the president. That is the president of football operations to you. Now, what does the president do? I don't really know. But that's what he's the president for whatever it's worth. Somebody said, Jared said he was uncomfortable calling someone a nickname in the next segment called Nicholas Petit Ferrer PT. Yes, but that's not his nickname. They don't call him that. We call him that because Chris Sanders made it up and it made no sense. And we laughed about it when Chris said it because that's why we love our crazy Uncle Chris. By the way, there was a small sentiment when I told Chris Sanders that apparently the Titans came out today with what the media schedule will look like for the upcoming season. And Will Levis is scheduled to talk at 2:30 every Wednesday. And so that's usually about a 20-minute, whatever it is. And then we would react to it. And so I'm like, do we need to move Chris Sanders off the 2:45 on Wednesdays where he's sat every single Wednesday since we started this show? And it's like, do we need to move it because of Will Levis? And the text line reacted, I think, pretty strongly with the idea of they'd rather hear what Chris Sanders has to say. Which, I mean, with Chris Sanders,
everybody loves Chris.
You never know what he's going to say next. I know some people say that about me, but sometimes I think it's pretty obvious what I'm going to say next. When the right tackle position's a disaster this year, you're going to hear me tell that right tackle story. When it comes to Chris, you never know what he's going to say next. Chad said, y'all stole a heck of a young safety from the Cowboys. I'll have to take your word for it. I'm not watching Cowboy preseason tape.
Yeah, come on. Get the NFL Plus preseason tape out there. See what happened on those 2 interceptions.
You know this better than probably anybody else. My life has changed dramatically over the last 6 months or so.
No time for preseason tape for the Cowboys?
I would say my life's about to change even more. And because of that, no. I have no time for that. No time. Plus, Lululemon is reporting their earnings tomorrow. That's very important to me. Not that I'd have anything to do with that. Not that I could affect it one way. I guess I could go to the Lululemon store in the mall and, buy up the store and maybe that'd change. Who knows?
Maybe a little.
615-737-1025. I do want to just kind of roll through some of these before we actually get to, the real important stuff. One texter says, I'm more worried about Rand's kids having influence on roster moves than I am about the fans' influence on the team. I mean, Rand's kids clearly don't have any influence because Rand told Bussin' with the Boys his kids loved Mike Vrabel and thought they were stupid for firing him. So make of that what you will, for whatever it's worth. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, the more I'm like reading through the text messages, the more I'm like, I think you guys took this press conference more seriously and tougher than I did. I mean, I thought it was a fine press. I didn't think there was anything crazy in it. I didn't think they were allowed to say what they said about Nick Vannett, about like, oh, no, Nick Vannett, he'll be back. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could say that. Like, I didn't know you could, and I know you could do that, but I didn't know you could say that. So who knows? 615-737-1025. Now everybody's trying to speculate in the text line what's going on with my life.
They did say Cedric Graves going on IR.
They did say that.
That was some news.
You can say that.
Yeah.
But everyone's trying to speculate what's going on with my life.
Mm.
Again, we're talking about not watching Cowboy preseason football. That's all we're talking about here. Oh, goodness gracious. And no, I am not getting married to everybody out there. Though that would be something, would it not? 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025-1063. Coming up next, though, there is a question I do have about this Ernest Jones stuff that wasn't asked today in the press conference. And I was kind of surprised it wasn't asked because I do think it's kind of a big deal. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
talked a little bit about the knee just now, but from your understanding, what was the situation with it?
Well, not to violate HIPAA laws and talk about his medical, but again, their head trainer Reggie Scott was trained under Todd Torricelli when he first came into the league. Their director of rehab, Byron Cunningham, is one of my closest friends. So in terms of getting the medical and understanding where the knee was, we were fully comfortable and knowledgeable of what it was and what we need to do for him to keep him going.
That was Rand Carthon on Ernest Jones. So the Titans are telling you, hey, there's no worries when it comes to the knee. Now, if you wonder how valuable Ernest Jones is to the Rams, Sean McVay had a press conference yesterday, and he was asked about, hey, how are you possibly, going to replace this guy? Who, again, the stats that your leading tackler, team captain, inside backer, how are you going to replace this guy? And Sean McVay didn't seem to think that it was really that big of a deal.
Will you guys at all be looking at possibly adding a veteran linebacker to that group?
No, we feel great about the linebacker group. So you guys are all shocked, but we feel really good about, I have a ton of respect for Ernest, and I'm excited about what he'll do in Tennessee and what he's meant here. But this was a decision that we feel like is best for our football team with the guys that we have. I think Troy Reeder and Roseboom are excellent. I think Jake Hummel's got versatility, and I couldn't be more impressed with Omar Spates and his emergence as a young, undrafted rookie free agent making the team. Eli Neal's another guy, and we've got a bunch of different things that we can do personnel-wise with some of the guys that we have on the back end and on our front. And doesn't take anything away from Ernest, but every decision that we make, and I think you guys know me well enough now, is what we think is best for our football team, and this is in alignment with that.
Okay. So are you nervous? Do you need to replace? No. We'll be fine. So not very valuable to the Rams. But I was thinking about this, which is kind of the next question. And it wasn't asked today in the press conference, I was a little surprised by, though I'm sure Rand would have said that we keep family business in-house, which he normally says with this. But so are they going to extend Ernest Jones? Because the reason it sounds like the Rams let him go is because he wanted a contract extension and the Rams weren't going to give him one. And so he seeks a trade, goes to Tennessee. Now, apparently his salary is $3.1 million. Elijah Molden's salary was $3.1 million. They've traded Elijah Molden to the Chargers today for a quote unquote late round draft pick, which is usually a 7th. So they did that and they cleared up the money and they put him in there. But my question is, if this guy's so good, and it sounds like he is, then do you extend him? And if you do that, you've got 11 days to do it, because once you go into the season, these guys don't want to sign extensions. It happens, but not very often. These guys, when it comes to the season, once they start playing games, it's like, well, I'm already 6 games into the year and I'm having a good season. So why, when I'm this close to free agency, would I do that when I could get the Azeez Al-Shaair contract? And so that's the question that I really wonder for the Titans is, when you made this move to acquire Ernest Jones, unless you're thinking about franchise tagging him, which I don't know who's a free agent at the end of the year. That's the good news about blowing the 20 and 21 drafts. Dylan Radins is a free agent. Like, that's Dylan Radins, DeAndre Hopkins, and everybody else that you signed to a 1-year deal this year. They're free agents. Everybody else who matters, not a free agent at the end of the year. Levis isn't a free agent at the end of the year. Latham isn't a free agent at the end of the year. Landry and Simmons aren't free agents at the end of the year. Snead and Awuzie and those guys aren't free agents. So that's kind of the good news there. So maybe you could franchise tag him, but are you going to give him a contract? And when I think about giving him a contract, the one that comes to mind for me as kind of the example would be Azeez. And Azeez signed a 3-year, $34 million contract in Houston. The reality of that contract is it is a 2-year, $22.5 million contract. So it really is $11.5 million or $11 million per year. And for Azeez, I think it's an overpay. When I'd rather take $11 million and use it on a tackle or use it on a tight end or use it on a more meaningful position. So are you ready to commit $11 million for next year for Ernest Jones? Or because you didn't give up a first-round pick or a second-round pick or anything else like that, because you didn't give that up, do you just look at it and say, hey, we'll just let him play it out? And if he plays it out and then he goes out into free agency, good for him. Now, personally, I think I would prefer that they extend him, just because I kind of want them to be done with the inside linebacker position since David Long left. David Long left. They went off on the cheap because they were trying to brag about having the top 5 cap space in the last press conference. So they didn't spend any money last year, and that's how you got Dillard and all those other guys. So David Long leaves. They replace him with Aziz. Aziz is fine, but then Aziz gets a big contract. And at some point, it's like, well, can we just get something there that's an answer? So I do wonder that, like with Ernest Jones, are you going to look at him and say, you know what, this guy, we're not just acquiring, and they didn't spend anything in draft capital, but are they going to look at this and say, you know what, this guy, he's more to us than just, hey, a rental inside backer that a team like Baltimore or Buffalo or Kansas City or a Super Bowl kind of team would get and say, no, we're just going to try to ride it out this year. He's a young guy. He's 24. It's like, this is the kind of guy that could be a core piece on the defense as your defense with Adams and Awuzie and Landry gets older. 615-737-1025. I did think this text was funny. One texter into the text line said, bragging about being top 5 in cap space the year that you just picked 7th in the draft is absolutely wild. Well, let me just say this. I think the cap is fake, but I do think the owner enjoys not spending a bunch of money. So when it's like, hey, we didn't spend a lot of money last year. We didn't win any games, but we didn't spend any money. That doesn't matter to me, and it doesn't matter to you, but maybe it matters to the owner. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. Doesn't matter what you think. It matters what the owner thinks. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Jared versus Joe is up next here on Stillman and Company. It's 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063. The game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. The roster is out, and then as soon as the roster was out, changes. Goodbye, Rashad Weaver, which I'm in favor of. Goodbye, Nick Vanette, who they say is coming back. Hello. I keep forgetting the guy's first name, but his last name's Gay.
Ali
Gay. And hello, Julius Wood. Waiver claims they have made. And then goodbye, Elijah Molden, who they traded for, which or traded away, which I'm not totally in love with that idea, even though I think Molden kind of sucks. Caroline is with us, though, here because it is 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, and nothing is going to stop Jared versus Joe. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, how are we doing?
Outstanding. Joe is here. Joe, I'm sure you think every decision the Titans have made is the smartest decision out there.
Yes, I'm a total team honk. I'm just really impressed that you introduced me. You normally don't do that.
Well, you got mad at me last time for not doing it, so I figured this time I would, and I'm already wasting precious seconds. So let's get to Jared versus Joe.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexrode. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN
1025 The Game.
Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville.
All right, Joe, you go first for this one. Obviously, Malik Willis traded away. It's looking like Mason Rudolph is going to be the Titans' backup quarterback this season. Where does he rank amongst backup quarterbacks in the NFL?
Ooh, I feel like this could be the predetermined Jared win question. However, that's okay.
We do not predetermine on this program. Answer the question, please.
I will answer the question. I feel good. I feel good about saying he is a top 10 QB2 in the NFL, and that is based on watching him play. Now look, to be fair, it's not like I'm out here watching all these other guys play. So it's based on watching him play in the preseason. And by the way, I thought he kind of looked crappy in the spring. He's really gotten better. I mean, he's in sync. He's in rhythm. He's sharp. He's accurate. He has played winning football in the NFL. I know Jared's going to say, oh, Mike Tomlin benched him for Duck Hodges. Well, guess what? The Cleveland Browns gave Deshaun Watson $1 billion guaranteed. Previous transactions don't mean a damn thing about this question. So I'm going to preemptively yell at you about that, Jared. But yes, I feel confident right now in saying that Mason Rudolph is a top 10 QB2 in the NFL.
You top 10, because the cut that Chase played for me when I went on Chase and Big Joe the other day was top 3. So you've already backed from top 3 to top 10.
That. I said something like, what was he, like top 3? Joke. And then we went through it, and I think I put him like at 5 or 6. So, no, you're already misquoting me.
Okay, so I think there's a bigger issue here than just where Joe ranks him, but I will get to that in a second. The bigger issue is, what in the world has Mason Rudolph done for people whose opinions I respect, like Trevor Maddich and Chris Sanders, and maybe other people whose opinions I don't respect? What has happened to lead to all these people just drop their pants at any discussion that has to do with Mason Rudolph? What have I missed? Like, what did he do? Did he throw for 8 touchdowns in one of these preseason games, Joe?
He got hit in the head with a helmet. That's where all of this came from.
Joe, do you remember, by the way, you filled in for Floyd the day after that happened? You texted me and you were like, what are we going to talk about today? I was like, we're going to talk about the guy getting hit in the helmet. And you were like, for 4 hours? And I was like, yes. And you were like, really?
Yeah, it should have been a half hour. You wasted the entire day.
We took calls for 4 hours on Mason Rudolph getting hit in the head. And that was, I think,
that happens in like every joint practice ever.
I think that was when Joe realized that was like the power of me and the ability to just do the same topic over and over and over again. But when did Mason Rudolph get good? Somebody needs to explain this to me.
No. We are, Jared, it's the context of backup quarterbacks. That's the question, and that's all that matters.
Okay.
You seem to think everybody's saying he's a starting quarterback. I'm not saying that at all. He's a good backup quarterback. It was a good signing for them as a QB2.
So if he was a good backup quarterback, then why would the one coach that he's played for, who, unlike the Cleveland Browns, who will end up in the Hall of Shame, Mike Tomlin is going to end up in the Hall of Fame? How come?
But he's great with quarterback decisions. Oh, how come Mike Tomlin, who's like, Kenny Pickett, come on down, baby. First round. I mean, you can't even seriously be trying to use this as your argument.
Is Mike Tomlin going to the Hall of Fame?
Did Mike Tomlin pick Kenny Pickett as QB1 and then immediately give up on him? Is Mike Tomlin going with Russell Wilson right now?
Bill Walsh said that Rick Meyer was going to be the next Joe Montana. So even the great ones miss. But my point is that Mike Tomlin is going to the Hall of Fame. And Mike Tomlin had Mason Rudolph as his quarterback for 6 years. And in those 6 years that he had Mason Rudolph, he demoted him to third string multiple times. Then once he realized, you know what? He doesn't suck as bad as Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, who I have ahead of him. And so now I'm going to put him in there. And they played in the playoffs. He didn't even want to bring him back. I mean, if Mason Rudolph was so good, Mason Rudolph would be making more than $2.6 million or whatever it is. He's making under $3 million. That Joe Flacco's making. Are
you going to answer the question or no?
So where does he rank? So here's who I would put ahead of him. I would put Flacco ahead of him. I would put Jameis Winston ahead of him. I would put Cooper Rush ahead of him. I would put, Cooper Rush, like Neil O'Donnell, the Cowboys, when Dak got hurt, they ended up in the playoffs.
It's arguable.
I mean, come on now. I would put Cooper Rush ahead of him. I would put Carson Wentz ahead of him.
The Wentz wagon. There we go. It's already getting good at QB2, Carolina. Have you noticed how awesome QB2s are in the league? Keep going, Jared. You're at 4.
I would put Justin Fields ahead of him. I would put, let's see, I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Let's see.
I would put, hold on. I would put Tyrod Taylor ahead of him.
Really good. Oh, okay.
Would you not put Tyrod Taylor ahead of him?
It's close. It's arguable. I would not.
It's not close.
Dude,
it's not
Tyrod
close.
Taylor,
Tyrod Taylor has never been demoted to third string, Joe. Mason Rudolph has been third string almost his entire life in the NFL. Duck Hodges took his job. And do you know what Duck Hodges is doing right now? Duck Hodges is calling TV games for high school football with Max. That's what he's doing right now. No disrespect.
So you're failing. You're failing to even get to 10. And so again, you're going to divert the conversation to Duck Hodges.
No,
was picked
you
over him
won't let
one
me
time.
finish as I'm going through these guys.
Keep going.
I'll put
you're on
Mac,
a roll.
I'll put Mac Jones ahead of Mason Rudolph. Which
there we
again,
go.
Mac Jones has made a Pro Bowl before. And Mac Jones was the highest rated passer in the preseason. So if we're going off of what we've seen this preseason.
I love your picking and choosing of things. This is just fantastic. Keep going.
You're allowed to sit here and tell me that Mason Rudolph's so good based off 20 snaps you've seen him take. And I'm telling you, Mac Jones was the leading passer
I've seen him win games.
Win games. Win games.
The leading passer in the preseason is so amazing.
Tell me
and
one
by
game.
The way, so you're
Tell me one
about,
game you remember Mason Rudolph winning for the Steelers and how he won it.
I do not have the date, Jared.
Because you don't know him winning.
Quarterback.
You didn't think anything of it when they signed him. You've seen him throw the ball a couple of times in a red jersey in practice.
I thought it was a
and
good
now
signing.
your pants are off over Mason Rudolph.
You're at 8, buddy. You're at 8. Keep going.
I'll take Jimmy G, and I think he sucks too.
Okay.
And I'll take him ahead of him.
That one's actually that's arguable. That's arguable. That's
and I'll
fine.
take Case Keenum ahead of him. And I will take
Keenum.
NFC championship game. Case Keenum.
Look at our little Jared go. Look at our little Jared go. Hercules. What you're going with? You got freaking Case Keenum out here now. This is amazing.
Did Case Keenum quarterback a team to the NFC championship game? Yes or no?
No. Again.
Yes, he did.
Just like
yes, he
Taylor.
did, Joe. You're going to sit there and say no.
I
he
remember.
Absolutely did it. Mac
I
Jones
remember.
absolutely went to the Pro Bowl. Tyrod Taylor has absolutely started.
That's the best. That's the best that you actually are going with the Pro Bowl thing for Mac Jones.
Tyrod Taylor has been the starting quarterback for an entire season for a team that made the playoffs. Mason Rudolph can't say that.
We're at 10, which is where I put him. I mean, you got to keep going.
You said top 3. In fact, I'll take the two quarterbacks. I'll take the two quarterbacks behind Stroud. I will take both of them before I take Mason Rudolph.
Oh, Davis Mills. Robbie will be happy about that.
I will take both of them.
Now you're just throwing out names because you're just like, okay, let's do this.
Because that's how bad Mason Rudolph actually is for you and Chris and Trevor.
Dude, I think you should go Tyson Bagent.
No, that guy sucks.
Mullins? Little Nick Mullins, come on.
I mean, I think they're on the same. I think
Nick Mullins.
I think that Michael Penix. I'll take Michael Penix
Oh,
over him.
Take a rookie whose body is already about to spontaneously combust. That's
All right.
a great call.
Team vote here. Michael Penix, or right now, all three of us, majority rules, Michael Penix or Mason Rudolph.
To start a game right now in the NFL and win a game?
I vote Penix.
Oh, my God. I'll take Mason Rudolph 1,000,000 times out of 1,000,000.
It's a hot take.
Oh, it's
Is
not
that
a hot take.
I would probably take Mason Rudolph over a player that's never played a snap in the NFL.
Over Penix? Would you take Mason Rudolph over Caleb Williams?
Jared?
No.
Would you take him over
What
Jaden
are we
Daniels?
talking about? Oh, hold on. What are we talking about? We're talking about like to take the guy on your roster or to win one game.
I mean, I'm taking Michael Penix no
obviously
matter
we'd
what.
all-
Like, I don't know. I think you guys are on drugs.
No,
I'm
what-
taking Michael Penix no matter
No.
what.
Yeah, okay. It depends on the question you're asking.
I will
if we're
take-
talking about long term, yes, I'll take Caleb Williams over Mason Rudolph.
To win
What
one
are we
game, you would
doing
take
here?
Mason Rudolph
What are
over
we even
Caleb
doing
Williams
here?
right now.
To win one game?
Yes.
I need to know the team. I need to know what kind of team we're talking about.
No. Yes, right
Yeah,
now.
so in other words-
one game to win, Caleb or Mason, who would you take?
I hate it.
I
I
would
guess
take
I'll
Caleb
take Caleb.
Williams.
I guess I'll take
have
Caleb, but
to.
I hate saying it. I hate
guys-
saying it.
The fact this is
It's a
not
rookie.
a question,
We're talking
Joe.
about a rookie. Oh my God, it's
This
a
is
rookie.
not a
rookie.
question.
Okay, all right.
All right, if you had to take, because they'll play next week, if you had to take
Is
right
this
now
gonna
to
be
win
the whole
one
thing?
game,
Is this
no.
going to be all of Jared versus
Joe,
Joe?
just shut
You're
up
gonna
for a
keep
second.
Going?
If you had to
shut up.
take Caleb Williams or Will Levis to win one game, who would you take?
Caleb Williams or Will Levis to win one game.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go Levis.
Caroline?
What? Caleb Williams.
I would take
I mean,
Williams
it's-
too.
I mean, I'll take Williams as my long-term answer over Will Levis. But yeah, I mean, I'll take a guy who's played in the NFL over a guy who's not played in the NFL. If there's a relative level of talent with the guy who has played in the NFL and with Will Levis, there's plenty of talent.
This is like when Jerry Stackhouse thought he was better than Kobe. It's like, yeah, I know Kobe's in high school, but Kobe's still better than you. All right, Caroline, what's next?
All right, on to the next one. Elijah Molden traded today. Do you agree with the move? Jared, you start.
Actually, no, I don't. And I'll tell you why I don't agree with it. Because right now they have 4 corners on the team. And 2 of the corners are hurt. Like, I know Brian Callahan said, no, L'Jarius Sneed's ready to roll. But the guy never practices. And so you cannot he's always going to be hurt. You know, that's just part of the deal. So you can never have enough corners. And so the Titans have 4 corners. And I'm like, okay, well, that's probably a disaster waiting to happen. But worst case scenario, if Molden has to play corner, at least he can. And I know he's not as bad as Trey Avery. So at least they have that. And it's some depth. You know, he can play some safety. He can play some corner. And because Jamal Adams is also always hurt, you know, it's like, hey, let's make sure that you have that. And then all of a sudden they traded him for a bag of footballs. It's like, oh my God. Like, again, are the bag of footballs more valuable than the depth that Molden represents? And I don't think they are. So I'm not a fan of the move.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Jared's take on this. I like, you know, I like Molden as a backup and a movable piece. If they, you know, you do, I mean, it's good news for the Titans that Sneed is out there and full go. And Callahan did make the distinction, which I think is important, that Awuzi's not full go. So, I mean, I think that tells you he's not just saying, oh yeah, they're out there. I mean, he actually gave specifics on who's doing what, and Sneed is full practicing. But you still have to look at their injury histories and possibilities and want more depth there. Look, they do have Avery and they have Judy Lally. They're going to do the practice squad shuttle thing. But I like Molden as a movable piece. You lose one of those outside guys, and I like him still as a big nickel. And then, you know, McCreary's good enough to play outside, and I'm sure he will some this year. So I think it would have been better to just keep him. I saw like Justin Mello had something that, you know, said team source, you know, that he was unhappy with the situation. I guess I don't blame him for being unhappy, given it looked like he was going to be maybe a starter, and then he gets bumped down the roster, down the depth chart. But that's also life in the NFL. I mean, to me, good for him. It worked out. He got sent out to the Harpster. He gets to enjoy life with the Harpster. But I think the Titans would have been better off keeping him as opposed to the pick.
Do you think that Jake Browning is better than Mason Rudolph?
Jake Browning was awfully good last year. He actually was one of the guys that I think I talked about in the 5 or right around 5 or so. So now a lot of the guys you said I don't, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Mac Jones just being the highest rated passer in preseason.
Oh, yeah.
Going to Pro Bowl
sure.
put him
Yeah, get very excited about Mac
Michael
Jones.
Penix
Get
going to the
very
national
excited.
championship
should-
game, I guess, doesn't.
Oh,
Would you
yeah.
take Drake
Let's talk
May
about
over
college.
Mason Rudolph?
Well, so the real question about the Mason Rudolph thing is going to be Jacoby Brissett because May's going to be the starter there. So
Is he?
Is he?
I think that
You breaking news?
Gerard Mayo came out and said that May has been the better of the two. And when you say the young guy's the better of the two, at that point, the horse has left the barn.
I thought he said he's the second best quarterback on the roster.
So he did a press conference after the game, and then he did a press conference the next morning and said the opposite of what he said at the press conference after the game. Which one was which, I couldn't tell you. But he said something like, yeah, he's earned the right to – it was, yes, something along that, and then said that he's ahead of him and then said he was behind him. So who knows? But
I'll take Jacoby Brissett over Mason Rudolph if Jacoby Brissett is the Patriots' backup.
So I think Brissett stinks, but I think that Brissett is the exact same level quarterback that Mason Rudolph is.
Yeah, but Brissett wasn't benched one time by Mike Tomlin for Duck Hodges. So that's the only thing that matters. That transaction, the only thing. 8-4-1 as a starter, getting to the playoffs last year, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that he got benched one time for Duck Hodges. That's what matters.
He got benched the
Per
first
Jared.
time,
Per
and then
Jared.
the second time they made him third string behind Mitch Trubisky. And then after he did quarterback them and they made the playoffs, a playoff game against Buffalo in which they never had an opportunity. They were never going to win that game. But they played that playoff game, and then Pittsburgh had no desire to keep him whatsoever, and they figured they'd be better off with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And I do think Fields is better than Rudolph. So that would be another backup quarterback that I would put ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'd put
keep
Browning
going.
ahead of him.
I think you should put him around 32, man. I think you should rank him around 32.
I mean, I'm putting him ahead of Mariota, but I mean, again, we've seen Mariota.
Far now, right?
No, but I mean, again, we can only go off the past results of what guys have done. It's not like we can sit here and tell you what they're going to do. I mean,
right,
I think
so
Rudolph
8-4-1 as a starter, that doesn't count though because it doesn't fit your argument.
I mean,
so that doesn't matter.
But doesn't it matter to you a little bit that the head coach of the team didn't want to bring him back?
Dude, again, you can go through Hall of Famers and non-Hall of Famers and their quarterback decisions and thoughts at different times in their career and lampoon them. I mean, 3-1 as a starter from the guy who, let's see, last year he threw for 290 on the Bengals and 274 on the Seahawks. Did those games happen or no?
I mean, I didn't see them, but
they're on the internet if you'd like to look up the box score.
But I mean, if we're going to use the passing yards, if we're going to use the passing yards, then wouldn't Sam Howell's 3,900 yards put him ahead of Rudolph? I don't see Rudolph throwing for 4,000 yards in a season.
You got Howell? You got Howell? Go for Howell.
I will tell you, I thought Sam Howell was the best quarterback that I saw in the joint practices that entire week. Between Geno Smith,
Caroline. Consider that in your scoring, Caroline.
Between Geno Smith, Levis, Rudolph, Malik, I thought, and who was the other guy? PJ Walker. Boy, he's terrible. I thought that the best quarterback at the practices was Sam Howell. I mean, you want Caroline to factor it in there. She wasn't at the practices, so I don't know how she could be for that or against that. But more
Jared
still
versus
laugh at you
Joe.
For that. More Jared versus Joe to continue next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Caroline, go.
All right, now that we know the Titans 53-man roster, or at least close to what the 53-man roster is going to be, how good are the Titans?
Who goes first?
It's me first?
Jared.
I think it's me first. Oh, okay.
It is Joe first. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Joe, go.
How good is this Titans? I think they've improved the roster for sure and significantly in a couple of key areas. I'm cautiously optimistic about the offensive line. Not that it's going to be good or very good or top 10 in the NFL, but I'm cautiously optimistic based, on track record with Bill Callahan. Based on, I do believe Nicholas Petit-Frere has talent and right now is healthy and
AKA
has a little I'm not doing that. That is we do not have that nickname on my program. NPF, AKA NPF.
PT. PT.
No, and they've upgraded corner. I mean, look, I don't think it's great that those guys haven't practiced at all during camp. So that's going to be a really interesting in the opener against the guy you guys both apparently think is the savior of football, Caleb Williams. I mean, the receiving core is definitely
the
better.
third largest city in America thinks that.
Oh, well, then it must be true, Jared.
I mean, you're acting like Caroline and I are like the QAnon people out here thinking that Caleb Williams.
Wow.
And again, I don't think he's the savior for football because he carries a purse.
I think he's gonna be really good.
I think that he is. That's right. I think that if I had to win one game, I'd rather have him quarterbacking than Mason Rudolph. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And I think
just
that
imagine,
50
Caroline,
states
imagine
in
if
America
he could get rid
think
of the
that.
purse, how good he'd be. Holy crap.
Trying to work the
Can you
ref right
imagine
there.
If Caleb Williams got rid of the purse, holy cow. But anyway, I think the Titans they're a team that can be like an 8-win-ish team. I think they can be in that range and be in the playoff discussion in December, grind in there and try to grind out 8-9 wins. I mean, right now I think my last prediction was 7. I guess next week we'll do them. I'll probably go through it again and maybe it'll be a little better, but probably 7-10, 8-9.
So when I started working here and I was 25 years old and it was almost 10 years ago. And I thought it was really, really cool. Like the day that I got hired, Derek got hired and Floyd got hired. And I was like, I grew up a Titans fan. Derek was the number 1 receiver. Floyd was the GM. It was like, wow, Derek Mason and Floyd Reese. And so the second week that I was working here, George Plaster was off and Willie was with the Predators. And Floyd and I were working together for the first time. And I didn't really know him very well. So this is
not the right tackle story.
I wanted to make small talk with him. And so I was like, well, Floyd, are
good
the
Lord.
Titans going to be any good? And you know what he said?
God, Jared.
Do you know what he said, Joe?
I do know what he said.
What'd he say?
He said they don't have a right tackle.
They don't have a right tackle. And my favorite thing is, Corey, I love you, but I'm going to blame the Titans polo that he was wearing, cutting off the circulation to his brain on Sunday. But when he was on the field and he goes, this was something that they were hoping they could figure out, but now it's something that they feel good about. And then the bozos up in the booth were sitting there with Rand Carthon saying, I mean, these guys won the job. And Rand's like, that's why we have competition. And it's like, the guy at right guard quit, so that's why Radens won that job, and PT won the job at right tackle because the other 2 guys are terrible. Both of them, Duncan and Ojukwu, are awful. And then the Titans are telling us they're not, and I'm telling you, they're awful. And so how can I sit here and look at the team and say, hey, they made a good trade for a middle linebacker? Like, I like this trade. I don't know anything about this player, but on paper, it looks good. So great. But they don't have a right tackle. And they are winging it. Like they are hopeful that this will work.
Let me jump in with 2 things for you, Jared. First of all, so remind me, that was right before they drafted Conklin. So their right tackle was who again?
Their right tackle at the time, this was right after they had drafted Mariota. So this was a full year before they drafted Conklin. Which, again, the new GM came in, the one that everybody thinks sucks now, came in and got a right tackle. No, it was what they did was they drafted Jeremiah Patasi in the 3rd round, and they put him at right tackle. And then the day that Ken Wisenhunt got fired, Malarkey pulled the plug on that and put Byron Bell out there. And Byron Bell was, kind of like a Chris Hubbard type.
He was very bad. And I remember him in the spring of 16, and then he got the awful injury, and that was that. But
I mean, he took one rep and mutilated his ankle. So I don't know how much you remember from 16. It was one rep.
That was one rep of no, it was of mini camp though. There was stuff before that. Do you take Floyd's story, Jared, as saying right tackle is incredibly important, or if you're terrible at either tackle, that's going to kill you? Which one do you think that means?
I take Floyd's story as if you don't have a right tackle, you suck.
See, I think you took it too literally. I think the point is if you're horrible at either of those spots, then you're really going to have a problem. And the thing is, I don't think they're horrible with Nicholas Petit-Frere, but I guess we'll find out.
So it's funny because I was in the hospital like a couple of weeks ago. I got an infection in my leg or whatever, and they were just looking at it. And my dad went with me, and we were talking with the doctor about whether or not the Titans are going to be any good. And when the doctor walked out, I was telling my dad, I was like, my favorite thing about the right tackle story is that so many people are trying to analyze it now about like when Floyd said it and what did Floyd actually mean and what was I know exactly what he meant. I know exactly what he said. I'm in the same room right now that he was in when he said it. If you don't have, it's like, it would be like saying, does your car
explain it to you then?
It's like, is that a good car?
Did he explain it to you?
Did he didn't have to. It was obvious.
Okay.
Again,
So
it would be
in your
like
mind,
saying,
Floyd
do you
Reese
have a
thought
good
that right
car?
tackle was just an incredibly important position on a football team.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the point. That is the point of the right tackle story, is that the old man knew that Ken Wisenhunt and Rustin Webster were dumbasses because they didn't have a right tackle, because he's built teams before and he knows you can't build a team without a right tackle. That's the point of the story. Over the 7 years I've told, 2021, over the last 3 years I've told the story, has that not been abundantly clear that was the moral of the story?
Oh, I would never, Jared, underrate your ability to completely misinterpret something for several years.
Well, I mean,
if he explained it to you that way, then I'll take your word for it. But the point to me is, if you're awful at a position, then you're screwed.
At any position?
You're saying, well,
I think they're awful at tight end, but I think you can fudge it at tight end.
I think either tackle would make sense for that. But you know what I mean? You're saying that he puts right tackle how high in the hierarchy of important positions in the NFL?
I mean, it's pretty. I mean, I looked at him and I said, so that's pretty important, huh? And he's like, right tackle? Yes.
Okay.
As in, I think we can all agree, if you have a bad quarterback, you're not going to be any good. If you don't have any pass rush, you ain't going to be very good. If you don't have a left tackle, you're not going to be very good. You can get by at running back. You can figure it out at guard, which is why you don't draft one with the 11th pick. You can figure those things out. If you don't have a right tackle, you're screwed. And that's the point.
So did he think left tackle was less important than right tackle?
That doesn't have anything. What does that have to do with this?
Well, I mean, you tell the right tackle story, which to me reflects how bad they were there. But you seem to be saying, no, he put right tackle just way at the top of the list, no matter what the situation is with your roster.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's, again, if you don't have a right tackle, and I'm sure left tackle's the same and quarterback's the same, and if you don't have a right tackle, you suck. That's the point. And this team for the last 3 years has not had a right tackle. And they're trying the same guy that they've already tried before, and they think they're going to get a different result.
So the answer to the question is they're going to be terrible. I mean, because the question was, how good are the Titans going to be?
I mean, I'm having a hard time not getting there if they still don't have a right tackle. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to convince me and everybody else that PT is the answer at right tackle. And I mean, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me 13 times. At some point, you got to say, maybe we should try somebody else over there.
You going to answer the question or no?
No, I mean, they're going to be terrible. I think they're probably a 5-win team.
Okay.
Caroline?
He's on the record.
On to the next.
Go ahead.
Jared, you go first. Does DJ Uiagalelei suck?
I think what we're about to see, and I hope I'm wrong about this because I love the Titans, but what I think we're about to see with PT is what we're seeing with DJ, which was DJ Uiagalelei was this high recruit, and all of a sudden Clemson has him, and he's the next guy, and it's Deshaun and Trevor and DJ, and he's got the Dr. Pepper commercial, and he's supposed to be the truth. And then kind of sucked. The first game, it was like, well, Georgia's got a good defense. And for 2 years, he was at Clemson and he didn't do anything. And then he went to Oregon State. And I don't know anybody who watches Oregon State, but he must have done okay there to convince all the college football heads that he was a changed man when he went to Florida State. And I'll be damned if that same quarterback on Saturday at Florida State was not the same quarterback I saw do nothing at Clemson. And like I said, I think it's going to be the same way with PT. We keep trying to say, well, this is going to be different now. And I'm not sure it's going to be. So do I think he's like God awful? I mean, no, I think we've seen some quarterbacks in college football over the years that have just been, I lived through Greg Zolman. So like, I know what that looks like, but yeah, he's not good.
So Jared's answer was no, and that's the same as my answer. He doesn't suck. Does he suck compared to number one recruit in the country? He's the next. Trevor Lawrence, and now here comes DJ.
Rated ahead of CJ Stroud.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So if we're comparing him to his expectations that were sky high, which means he's in the NFL 2 years ago, then sure, he sucks compared to that. But does he suck? No. And Jared just said the same thing.
Joe has responded to a texter in the text line. Ty asks,
I've been all over the text line. I'm loving it. This is great.
Ty says, how much better is PT than Jeremiah Patasi was? And Joe says dramatically. Joe,
he is dramatic. You disagree?
Did you cover a game that Jeremiah Patasi played in?
In college, yeah, actually.
Where?
Oregon.
Did Jeremiah Patasi play? I don't think he played at Oregon.
Oh, do I have it mixed up with somebody?
I think he played at Arkansas. I could be wrong about that.
No, it was a West Coast team, but it wasn't Oregon. It was not a Power 5 school.
Utah.
Oh, okay. Who the heck am I thinking of? Oh, he's Utah. Oh, okay. No,
Utah.
no.
Who was the Arkansas guy that got into that fight with Tajay Sharp?
Would have been the greatest quote.
Tretola, that's
would have been
Holy
the greatest
crap.
quote in the history of the NFL.
Oh,
The greatest quote
I
in the
forgot
history of the
about that
NFL
guy.
was
That guy,
awesome.
he sucked. Woof. I forgot about him. Tretola. But Joe, you can't say somebody was dramatically better than somebody else if you never watched them play.
Well, I watched him play in the NFL.
No, you didn't.
Patasi was worse than PT.
Patasi was terrible.
He was terrible. He's worse
I'm
than
not
PT.
saying that Joe was wrong for what he said. I'm just saying that Joe doesn't have the basis to be able to argue it as definitively as he's arguing.
On TV doesn't count now?
No, you didn't watch the Titans on TV in 2015 when you were living in Detroit and they were the worst team in the NFL?
You know what? I watched almost that entire Mariota opener. I was so excited about it, and I was like, holy crap, he's going to be a great one. Look at this. I was right. Then I was wrong.
Oh, first, before we have the winner, do we have the this was Joe's original take on Mason Rudolph, as Joe has claimed that it was originally not top 3, but now it's top 10. This is the cut. Play the cut, Ian.
Totally out of context. Totally out of context.
Mason Rudolph could be the third best backup in the NFL. Am I crazy? Is that a hot take? I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying after those two, I could put him there with Dalton. I know Dalton has done a lot, but Dalton is a lot older than Mason Rudolph.
Well, see, like the thing with you saying that is like Gardner Minshew, I think, is probably better than Mason Rudolph, but he's a starter now. Like he's probably shouldn't be a starter, but he is a starter. So like,
and the fact that he's starting means I'm not putting Aiden O'Connell over Mason Rudolph.
Exactly.
Okay, right now, the question with backup quarterback is right now you have to win a game and figure out a way to win a game with a QB. I'm absolutely going Mason Rudolph over Drake May. I think that soon enough, Drake May will be a starter, will be a better option at quarterback than Mason Rudolph. But right now, I'm not taking a rookie.
What about Jake Browning?
Yeah, Jake Browning. Yeah, actually, no, pretty good. Brian Callahan's been been doing pretty well with the
This
backup
is really
quarterback.
awesome
Yeah,
radio,
I mean,
Jared.
the
This
way
is
he
really
played last
proving
year,
your point, buddy.
awfully impressive.
I think
So
we
maybe
just
I'd
needed
put
the
him-
first
okay,
5 seconds. You're the one that was saying
Yeah.
the context was lacking. Ian, let's get
Well,
the first.
the
Let's get the first
context
5
kept
seconds
going.
again. Joe said that he didn't really mean top 3. Ian, play the first 5 seconds of this cut once again.
Oh God, yeah.
Mason Rudolph
This
could
is
be the third
exactly
best
what Jared
backup in the
said.
NFL.
Okay,
Am I
stop.
crazy?
Thank
Is
you
that a
so
hot
much.
take? I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you,
No,
Caroline.
that's exactly what you would do.
Who
Hey, hold
wins
on.
this
And
week?
by the way, Caroline asked a question and I answered it.
Caroline, who wins?
I also love that Joe said, I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying he could be, which is a
Could
classic.
they win the Super Bowl? I mean, could they?
A classic.
Listen
I
to the
just
ref.
said something that I don't really believe, so I need to try and backpedal a little bit kind of
Skip
tactic.
Rex Road.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you can listen to the rest of it, I think I settled on 6.
Skip. Skip Rex Road.
You both have had some doozies today. Like Jared saying the Titans are going to win 5 games. Like, you think they're going to win fewer games than they did last season with a last place schedule and Will Levis in his second season?
So Derek is
upgraded
saying
secondary.
So Derek has
right
said the same thing
tackle.
about the last place schedule. The benefits of the last place schedule for the Titans this year, this is one of those weird Fakakta situations. They draw into Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert because they have a last place schedule.
But Jared did bring receipts. Joe did say that he thinks Mason Rudolph could be a top 3 backup in the league.
And
Jared
he would
wins
take him.
this.
And
No,
Joe's got to
no, that's
lose
such
off
BS.
of play my bell.
Caroline,
Thank you.
that's such BS.
Thank you.
Caroline, you asked me. Hey, Caroline, you asked me a question. I answered it. So again, so whatever you ever said, that's it. That's locked in stone from now on. If we're going to play that game, I'll start bringing some more receipts to this too. We going to do that?
I don't think that you can bring receipts all you want.
You asked
That
the
is not
question,
my
I answered it.
jurisdiction.
You
I've
asked-
never
well, you asked
said
the
that you
question, I
couldn't bring
answered it.
receipts.
Hey,
I don't
question.
think he's top 10 either, Joe.
Question for the text line.
You know what? From now on, let's just play clips.
Hey,
We'll just play clips. We don't need to
Question.
actually answer questions.
Texter says, Joe, how do you debate with this clown every week? I agree with PK. He shouldn't have a radio show. He sucks. Did PK say I shouldn't have a radio show?
I don't think he said you shouldn't have a radio show, but I bet you can find 3 words he said, and then you can twist it and claim that he
Joe,
did, Jared. So
you
go get on
said
that
it.
right now.
You
Dude,
said it.
We started
Like
the
there's
conversation
more
like,
evidence
God, is
for
he-
this than there
he
is that
top
O.J.
3?
Simpson killed Ron
Jared,
Goldman.
Well, the evidence was right. Keep listening. Keep listening.
You
You'll hear
told me
where
to
I
stop
ended up with.
playing it. You were like, this is terrible radio, Jared.
It is terrible radio. Like, this segment has gone on forever. It's terrible. And it's a terrible decision by the judge. But
I think the number one reason why Joe should have lost is that idea that he would take Mason Rudolph in one game over Caleb Williams. That for me is the doozy.
That is
I didn't say that. I said Caleb Williams. I said Levis over Williams. I did not say Mason Rudolph. So again, I'm being
that's a
misquoted.
doozy too.
That's a doozy. 615-737-1025. Guys,
unbeatable quarterback.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait.
Jared versus
Yep.
Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, I just want everybody to know, Jared versus Joe, in my opinion, right there was an all-timer. And we have had some all-timers on this program. So the text line has exploded for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of people saying that Paul Kaharski did, in fact, say, quote, and that's why he shouldn't have a radio show, in reference to something you said. Somebody else said, PK, John Michael says, PK did say you should have your radio show taken away. Somebody else says he did say it. Josh from White House, quote, Stillman shouldn't have a radio show. Let me just say this. If Paul thinks that I should have my radio show taken away, he's entitled to his opinion. And I am not going to tell that man that he may not exercise his First Amendment rights to having his opinion and his freedom of speech. But let me just say this. I've been doing this for 10 years now, over 10 years. And Paul's been doing it for roughly about the same time, maybe a little bit longer. And one of us has had a radio show taken away from them, and one of us hasn't. And you'll never guess who the one who hasn't is. Let's go to your phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Lorenzo is up next on the program. Lorenzo, go ahead.
What up, Jared, man? Hey, I'll just give you a call, man. So you speak on right tackle being so important. Like, if you don't have a right tackle, you won't win the Super Bowl. So Kansas City won the Super Bowl last year. Do you know who their right tackle was last year?
Their right tackle was Jawan Taylor.
You know what his PFF rating was last year?
You know what his salary was last year?
A 51. A 51. So what I'm saying is that, Jared, you don't like Rand Carthon. You don't. He has made unbelievable moves, and the media is spinning it negatively. So he's trying to get a good roster here. A 51 PFF rating, okay? That's inarguable. Okay, so they won the Super Bowl.
It's not. PFF rating says Ernest Jones is better than Roquan Smith.
A 50 what? Hey, he's better than what we have now. We have a lot of unproven linebackers, right? We're not signing him to a big contract.
Is he better than Roquan Smith?
Roquan Smith is making $18 million a year. Jones is making $3 million a year.
So who's better? Because Jawan Taylor is making like $20 million a year.
Right, $20 million with a 51 PFF rating.
Right.
So
does the money matter, or does the PFF rating matter? You tell me.
Is he better than Nicholas? Is he so much better than Nicholas Petit-Ferrer?
I mean,
and he's a Super Bowl winner. He's a Super Bowl winner.
Again,
51 PFF rating.
Jawan Taylor, Jawan Taylor was a massive bust. Like, there's no doubt about it for the money that they spent on him. But Jawan Taylor's been a starting right tackle in the NFL for like 5-6 years.
Right, but we're focusing in on right tackle as if like it's the most important position.
No, but it is. Again, I don't know why a lot of people have such a hard time understanding what I think the moral of the story was. And I appreciate your call, Lorenzo. I mean, I don't understand why so many people are having a hard time like understanding what the moral of the story was. But I don't think the moral of the story is that right tackle is the most important position. I think it is the old man saying that if you don't have a right tackle, you have no shot of being successful. And while Jawan Taylor did stink last year for Kansas City, I think it is inarguable that this guy is a legitimate starter. He's played 83 games in his career. He has started 83 from 16 games as a rookie. Like, that is a starting right tackle in the NFL. And I don't think that's what PT is. And this isn't about Rand Carthon, because I've been telling this right tackle story since John Robinson was the general manager here, when he was wheeling and just, winging it at right tackle. And I'm like, the old man you save, you don't have a right tackle. Like, it's is what it is. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Stillman and Company. So Bussing with the Boys. I do want to talk about this. Bussing with the Boys had Will Levis on, and I do not begrudge Bussing with the Boys. They've got a very good business model, and I think that this will give them something to do in retirement. But I don't listen unless like Brian Callahan's on, or Derrick Henry is on, or Mike Vrabel is on, so they had Will Levis on, so I had to listen to that. And I'm not going to say it wasn't entertaining. It was entertaining, but there wasn't like any spicy nuggets worth getting excited about talking about on the radio. But I do have to bring this up because they, Buzzing with the Boys, they have like a bunch of fanboy producers. So Will Compton, with Will Levis sitting right there, threw one of the fanboy producers under the bus. This was that interaction with Will Levis on Buzzing with the Boys.
Jack, you didn't mess with Will Levis at first, right?
Don't do this. Don't do this.
You got the photo of him jumping over Tennessee, and it was kind of making me think. I was like, wait a minute.
No,
Jack was kind of before the draft happened.
Will, I'm Jack. Nice to meet you.
Tell him what happened.
Lifelong Titans fan. All right. So when you were not selected in the first round, I put out a tweet. And it was like, when you don't select Will in the first round, it's some like dumb dancing gif. And it was nothing against you. It was purely for the value play. The second round when we got you, I was
before
like,
that week though
awesome.
on Bussin', you're like, I hope we don't get.
Well, I'm a Tennessee guy. I'm a Tennessee fan. So previous season it was fun to go back and forth. So you have a rival quarterback coming into Tennessee, and you want to have as much fun with it as possible. But when you got selected in the second round, and then when you had your first breakout game with the Titans, when you and D-Hop had those, like, Matt, what was it, 3 TDs, something like that, I did my due diligence, and in the parking lot afterwards, I said, I was wrong. And I said, I'm fully on the Levis train, and I want him to be as successful as he can, whether it's with the Titans or somebody else. So I'm fucking stoked. I've been singing your praises around town. I know you're going to be a dog out there. So, but it takes a man to admit when he was wrong.
Okay. I'd have had more respect for this guy if he had said, like, yeah, and when my team drafted you, I still was like, oh, God, why we draft this guy sucks. Don't just because the guy's right there, walk it back. Stand by it. Ian, you remember the firepower I took when I came out after watching that Georgia tape, and I said, I like Levis. I could take him at 11. I don't love him. I love Richardson, but I like him. And the people, they wanted to barbecue me because he sucked against Tennessee. That's it for us. Jake Lyman. Jake's doing a good job. Jake's up next. Stillman and Company. We'll see you all tomorrow, too. Hey, it's Jared for Window Nation. Did you know that most of your home's cold AC this summer leaked through your old windows? Save money year-round with energy-efficient ones from Window Nation. Right now, buy 2 windows and get 2 free. Plus, pay nothing for 24 months. Love your windows like Albert, who says, great value, great product, and great customer service. Hurry, sale ends September 30th. So schedule a fast in-home estimate right now at 866-90Nation or at windownation.com. It's Jared for Window Nation. Right now, buy 2 windows and get 2 free, plus pay nothing for 24 months. Hurry, sale ends September 30th. So schedule an in-home estimate at 866-90Nation or at windownation.com. Hey, it's Jared from my friends at Hiller. You've heard me talk about Hiller and how it feels to be a part of a family. Well, this month, Hiller is treating you like family too with their Friends and Family Savings event. Happy Hiller Club memberships save 25% off your first HVAC, plumbing, and electrical repair. And everyone also gets a 10% discount. Present your coupon and save. Visit happyhiller.com to download a coupon today. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Call the Happy Face Truck today.